And this is the engine that's going to power your educational empire by focusing on these four crucial pillars.
So let's break it down really quick. Think of data as your foundation. It's all about mapping your unique expertise against proven AI models. Then you've got organization, which gives you the structure, your blueprint for every single course so it's repeatable. Validation is your quality control. It's non-negotiable at every single step to make sure you're putting out great stuff. And finally, automation. That's the scale engine. It's a 9-step production pipeline that makes this insane speed actually possible.
And this slide, this is where the data pillar just shines. Instead of sitting around guessing what topics to do, you systematically fill out a matrix. You choose one of 7 domains, say AI, and you combine it with one of 12 archetypes, like the healer. Boom. That creates a unique course vector, and suddenly you have a crystal clear roadmap of 144 potential courses, like AI for physical therapists. The guesswork is just gone.
But listen, building the courses is really only half the battle. The Dova framework is also designed to turn every single course into its own powerful, self-sustaining marketing ecosystem. This is where we go from just creating content to really truly amplifying your impact.
So how does one course do all that? Well, it starts with this number right here, 148.
And what is 148? It's the number of individual, high-value pieces of content you can generate from a single 12-module course. Yeah, you heard that right. One course becomes the seed for a massive content explosion all across the internet.
Here's how it all breaks down. That one course, it becomes 12 podcast episodes, 36 YouTube videos, and over 100 social media clips for places like LinkedIn, TikTok, and X. It also spits out discussion prompts and even downloadable worksheets. Your content doesn't just sit on a server somewhere. It actively goes out and finds your students where they already are.
Now, I know this all sounds really ambitious, so let's bring it back down to earth. This isn't just theory. We're talking about a case study with real, hard numbers that prove this system absolutely works.
$37,719. That's the real revenue, cash in the bank, generated from just the first course launched with this system. It was a super specialized course for physical therapists. This proves the model is financially viable, like right away.
And how long did it take to make that happen? Just 90 days. We went from the initial idea to launch and revenue in a single quarter. This just shows the incredible speed that AI automation can unlock when it's structured the right way.
And we're not talking about a couple of people signing up. During that time, 127 students enrolled. This is proof that there's a powerful market demand when you create super specific, high-quality content that solves a real problem for a targeted group.
Okay, and here it is. This is the most mind-blowing number of them all. 8 hours. That's the total time it took to create the core content for the entire 12-module course. Not 3 to 6 months, 8 hours. That is the power of this system.
So, are you feeling inspired? Good, because now it's time to turn that energy into real action. Let's talk about the exact first steps you can take right now to begin your own 90-day journey.
All right, here's your homework. It's simple. First, choose your starting domain from those 7 options, the one where you have the most expertise. Second, I want you to list your first 5 high-priority course ideas, your vectors. Don't just build an order, start with the biggest opportunities. And third, get ready to dive into the next module where you'll learn the CRAFT framework for advanced AI prompting.
And I want you to remember this. The vision here is so much bigger than just selling an online class. You're not just creating courses, you are building an educational empire. This is about achieving massive scale, making a real impact, and creating a whole new way to share knowledge. Let's go. So I'll just leave you with this one final thought. The system is here, the tools are ready to go, and the opportunity is absolutely massive. The only question left is this: what empire will you build?
All right, so in our last explainer, we talked about the big picture, the grand vision, right? Well, today, we're going to get our hands dirty. This is where we actually build the engine that makes that vision a reality by setting up your core AI frameworks and content systems. Let's get into it.
Yup, if last time was all about the why, this session is 100% about the how. We're moving from the architect's blueprint to grabbing the actual tools from the toolbox. We're going to set up a super powerful, integrated system using a framework for awesome content, NotebookLM for turning it into audio, and Airtable to manage the whole thing. This is going to be your new command center.
Okay, so let's tackle the first big problem, the one that pretty much everyone runs into with AI. You get these inconsistent, kind of low quality, and, let's be honest, boring results. We have all been there. You have this amazing idea, you ask the AI to write about it, and what comes back is just meh. You know what I'm talking about.
Does this sound painfully familiar? You get this super generic Wikipedia-style answer. I mean, sure, it's technically correct, but it has zero soul, zero context, and it's definitely not something your audience is going to connect with. This is the default setting we have to break out of.
So what gives? Is the AI just kind of dumb? Well, no. The problem isn't the AI at all. It's us. It's the instructions we're giving it. The best way to think about it is that the AI is like a brilliant intern who has absolutely no context about your business, your audience, or your goals. To get great work out, you have to put great instructions in. And that's where our first framework comes in.
So let me introduce you to the Craft Framework. It's a simple, but believe me, incredibly powerful system that structures your prompts. It uses 5 key ingredients: context, role, action, format, and tone. Basically, it takes your fuzzy idea and turns it into a crystal clear project brief, which transforms that clueless intern into an expert member of your team.
And wow, does this show the difference, right? Over on the left, you've got the bad prompt, write about AI for doctors. So vague. But on the right, look at that craft prompt. The specificity is amazing. It gives the context: we're making a module for busy physical therapists. It assigns a role: you're an expert educator. The action, the format, the tone, it's all spelled out. You're not just asking for random text, you're commissioning a very specific piece of work. The difference in what you get back, it's literally night and day.
So here's the bottom line. The one thing you absolutely have to remember from this section: structure equals quality. When you give the AI a clear, structured brief using something like the Craft Framework, you get rid of all the guesswork. This is, without a doubt, the single biggest secret to getting amazing, on-brand content from your AI every single time.
All right, so now you're a pro, you're using Craft, you're getting incredible text. Awesome. But what's next? The next challenge is, how do you turn that awesome text into, say, a professional-sounding podcast or an audio lesson without spending days chained to a microphone wanting to pull your hair out in the editing process?
Okay, this is where NotebookLM comes in, and you are not going to believe how easy this is. It's almost ridiculous. Step 1, you upload your text. Let's say it's a 4,000-word module. Step 2, you click one button. Just one. It's called Audio Overview. Step 3, you go grab a coffee. You wait maybe 3 minutes. And step 4, you download a perfectly produced, really conversational podcast that's based on your text. Seriously, that's the whole process. It is an absolute game changer.
I mean, just stop and think for a second about what this gets rid of. Every single one of those classic headaches of making audio content, they just vanish. You don't need a fancy microphone or a soundproof room. You don't have to spend hours listening back and editing out all the ums and ahs, and you don't have to deal with your voice getting tired from recording for hours. The system just handles it all.
And this number says it all. 0. That's how many hours of your life you have to waste on the boring, tedious parts of recording and editing. None. This isn't just a small improvement. This is a totally different way of thinking about how fast you can create and share your content in multiple formats. So, let's recap. We have a system for great text, and we've got one for instant audio. This is great, right? But it also creates a new kind of problem. How on earth do you manage the production of all this stuff when you start scaling up, not just one piece of content, but dozens or even hundreds, without your whole operation turning into total chaos?
Well, that command center, my friend, is Airtable. I want you to just forget about messy spreadsheets for a second. Airtable is like a dynamic database for your entire content pipeline. It gives you this clean, at-a-glance view of everything that's going on. You can track the status, you can see progress bars fill up, and you can spot what's holding things up instantly. It's all about getting total clarity even when you're scaling up.
Okay, so there you have it. We've walked through the frameworks, we've looked at the tools, we've seen how to make amazing content, turn it into audio in minutes, and manage the whole process. But you know what? None of that matters if you don't actually do it. So now comes the most important part, putting it all into action. It's time for you to build your system.
So here's your action plan. I'm going to call it your homework. Just 3 simple, concrete steps to get this done. First, write one complete, really detailed craft prompt for a piece of content you're excited to create. Second, take that text and generate your very first podcast with NotebookLM. And third, set up your Airtable base. You can even use a template to make it easy, and start tracking your projects. You do these 3 things, and congratulations, you've officially built a working system.
And that just leaves us with one final question. You have the tools, you understand the frameworks, your system is literally sitting there ready to go. So the only real question left is, what are you going to build first?
Have you ever thought about building a really high-impact online course, but then you get bogged down by the idea of how much time and money it would take? You know, theory is one thing, but seeing actual proof is something else entirely. Today, we're going to dive into 3 real-deal, data-driven case studies that show how a new AI-powered framework is completely changing the game. First things first, let's just frame how big of a deal this is. The old way? You're looking at 6 months, maybe more, and shelling out $7,000, $10,000, even $11,000. The new AI-powered way? 3 weeks, and a cost of around $350. Look, this isn't just a small improvement. It's a completely different reality for creators. So, how do we know this is for real? Well, let's start with the very first case study that proved this whole concept could work, a course built specifically for physical therapists. You see, every great course has to solve a real burning problem. And for PTs, that problem is documentation. Can you imagine spending 2 to 3 hours every single day on paperwork? It's no wonder the profession has a massive burnout problem. So the mission was simple. Build a course that gives them those hours back. And they didn't do this over half a year. They did it in a focused 3-week sprint. And the breakdown is pretty wild. Week 1, the entire 200-page manuscript for the course was generated with AI and reviewed in just 16 hours. Week 2 was all about creating the podcasts, the videos, all the multimedia. And by week 3, boom, the course was live and launched. Now that is efficiency. I mean, this chart really says it all, doesn't it? The old way could take anywhere from 200 to 400 hours of your life. The AI-powered method? A grand total of 46 hours. That's a time saving of 85 to 90%. We're not just talking about working smarter, we're talking about actually getting your life back. But the big question is, does saving all that time mean you make less money? Absolutely not. The return on investment here is just staggering. On a total investment of about $345, the course brought in 127 students in the first 90 days, generating over $37,000 in revenue. This model isn't just fast, it's incredibly profitable. And you know, this is what really matters. The numbers are fantastic, but the human impact? That's the real story. Students were reporting saving on average over 4 hours every single week. This wasn't just another boring course to them, it was a real solution to a problem that was ruining their careers. Okay, so the model clearly works for a technical profession like physical therapy. But what about a creative field? Can it adapt? Let's take a look at our second case study, this time for electronic music producers. The challenge for this group was different, but it was just as real. You had all these aspiring artists making music, but it just lacked that professional shine. Their arrangements sounded kinda amateur, and they couldn't figure out how to make that leap to a commercially competitive sound. And what's so fascinating is seeing how the model just adapts. This side-by-side shows you the tweaks they made. Yeah, it took a few more hours to produce, but that's because they were creating detailed tutorials for complex music software. They adjusted the price for the market, and even though the revenue was a bit lower at first, it was a massive success in a very specific niche. It just proves how flexible this whole framework is. And the outcome here? It was all about creation. This course wasn't just about theory. It led to real, tangible results. Within 6 months, 23 students had taken what they learned and successfully released their own music commercially. I mean, that is literally a life-changing result. All right, for our final case study, let's tackle an audience that we all know is incredibly time-crunched and budget-conscious: K-12 teachers. Could the blueprint possibly work for them too? For teachers, the problem is something we hear all the time. There's just never enough time. They were losing almost a full workday every single week to clunky digital tools and endless administrative tasks. They needed fast, practical solutions they could use right away. So let's look at the whole picture, all 3 fields side by side. This is where you see the real power of adaptation. Check out the price for teachers, just $99. That decision led to a much higher number of students, 263 of them, which still generated over $23,000 in 90 days. It shows you can just tailor the variables, time, price, volume, to perfectly fit any market you're trying to reach. And the feedback? I mean, it doesn't get much more real or powerful than this. The phrase "saved my sanity," actually showed up in 34 different reviews. When your course gets that kind of emotional reaction, you know you've delivered something truly valuable.
So we've looked at 3 very different courses, all built with the same core framework, and all of them were wildly successful. That brings us to the most important question. What did they all have in common? What is this universal blueprint?
It's the question we have to ask, right? What on earth does a physical therapist, a musician, and a teacher all have in common that allowed this one single approach to work so well for every single one of them? Well, it really boils down to 5 core things. First, hyper-specific content. This isn't about generic AI fluff. It's about using AI to rapidly process tons of info so you can tailor your course to an audience's exact pain points. Second, immediate application. The whole point is to create actionable steps, not just theory, so students get results fast. Third, a strong community. Now, this isn't AI-driven, but it's a critical piece of the puzzle. Fourth, multi-format learning. The AI process makes it so easy to turn your main text into scripts for audio and video, which means you can cater to every learning style. And finally, active distribution. You can't just build it and expect people to show up. You have to be strategic about getting your course in front of the right people. Okay, we've seen the proof. We've walked through the blueprint. Now the focus really shifts from what's been done to what you can do. Your course could absolutely be the next one of these success stories. The message here is really simple and it's powerful. This blueprint isn't just for these 3 fields. It's a universal framework. It's designed to solve a specific problem, whatever that problem might be, for any profession or any passion out there. So, we'll end with this. Looking at this framework, seeing these results, understanding the incredible potential for both impact and income, the only question left is, what urgent, meaningful problem are you going to solve?
So, you've got this incredible idea for a course, but it's just stuck, isn't it? Today, we're going to tackle the 5 massive barriers that are stopping you from launching. We're going to break them down one by one.
Let's just be real for a second. You've got the knowledge, you've got the ambition, but something is holding you back. You know that super frustrating feeling of being stuck? Well, today, we're going to put a name to it.
I want you to think of these barriers as actual walls, giant brick walls. They seem totally solid, impossible to get past. But, once you see them for what they are, you can find the right tools to knock them right down, and that's exactly what we're about to do.
Okay, let's start with the biggest, baddest wall of them all, imposter syndrome. Yeah, that little nagging voice in your head that says you're just not qualified to teach anyone anything.
Does this sound familiar? This is the internal monologue that kills so many brilliant ideas before they even get started. It's that voice convincing you that everybody else knows more and you're just going to end up looking foolish.
But here's the crucial reframe, the secret, really. You don't need to be the world's #1 expert. In fact, sometimes being the top expert makes you a worse teacher for beginners because you've forgotten what it's like to start from scratch. Being just a few steps ahead, that makes you relatable. Your recent journey is actually your greatest teaching asset.
And what about that fear of judgment, of people not liking it? Well, look at the numbers. The reality is the vast majority of your audience is going to get real value from what you create. So, are you seriously going to let a tiny fraction of critics stop you from helping the huge majority who will love what you do? No way.
So here's your action plan. It's simple. First, I want you to actually write it down. I'm qualified because, and just own your experience. And second, focus all your energy on that 80% of people you are meant to help. That is how you knock down this first wall. Boom!
All right, wall 1 is down. Now, let's tackle its sneaky cousin, the second wall, which often goes hand in hand with imposter syndrome, perfectionism paralysis. This is that trap where making it better stops you from ever getting it done.
Ooh, this one is so tricky, right? Because it feels productive. You're just improving the quality. But let's be honest. Most of the time, it's just procrastination wearing a really fancy disguise, keeping your amazing work hidden from the world. This right here captures the whole conflict perfectly. A flawless course that only exists on your computer helps exactly 0 people. But a shipped, good enough version 1.0, that can start changing lives today. And guess what? You can make it better with real feedback from your actual students.
So what's the solution? A hard deadline. Pick a date, circle it on the calendar, This one simple act forces you to focus only on what's essential. It removes that endless temptation to just tweak one more thing. Whatever's done on that day, it ships, period.
Okay, moving on to the next wall, which is really two walls smashed into one. It's that feeling of being totally overwhelmed by all the tools out there, and, at the same time, being deeply skeptical about new methods, like using AI.
So on one side, you have total analysis paralysis from a million different platforms. And on the other, you've got this nagging fear that using AI is somehow cheating, or that the quality just won't be good enough for your students. It's a lot.
This is such a powerful reframe. Your students do not care about the tools you used. They care about one thing and one thing only. Did this course help me solve my problem? If the answer is yes, you've won. Focus on their outcome, not your process.
The solution here is to simplify. I mean aggressively simplify. You do not need 10 different tools. You only need 3 things to launch: an AI tool to help you draft content, a platform to host it, and a place to store your files. That's it. That's your minimum viable stack. Start there.
Okay, let's talk about the giant, the wall that absolutely everyone faces, the time myth. That deeply held belief that creating a course requires hundreds of hours that you just don't have.
We all feel this, don't we? I mean, between work, family, life, finding a huge chunk of free time feels absolutely impossible. But what if finding a huge chunk of time isn't the goal at all?
The reframe here is so important. Stop looking for entire free days on your calendar. They don't exist. Instead, find small, consistent blocks of time. This isn't about waiting for motivation to strike, because that is so unreliable. It's about building a system that guarantees you'll make progress.
And here's your action, the 2-hour block. Find it, schedule it, and then protect it like it's a national treasure. Phone goes in another room, no email, no distractions. You will get more done in 2 hours of deep, focused work than you will in 8 hours of scattered, interrupted effort. I promise you.
So, we've done it. We've identified the walls: imposter syndrome, perfectionism, overwhelm, and the time myth. And more importantly, we've found the tools to smash them to bits. With these barriers gone, the path forward is finally clear.
So let's just recap these powerful mindset shifts we've just unlocked. First, progress is way better than perfection. Second, taking action is the cure for anxiety. Third, a system will always be motivation. And finally, remember this above all else: done is always better than perfect. These are your new rules for creating.
We've broken down all the walls. We've cleared the path. Right now, there is only one thing standing between you and your finished course. And it's not another barrier. It's just a single decision. Your decision to begin. Now, go make it happen.
So have you ever thought about building a huge educational platform? I mean, not just winging it, but actually building it from a precise, scalable blueprint? Well, you're going to want to stick around, because today we're pulling back the curtain on a wild architecture for not 1, not 10, but 144 different courses.
144. Yeah, I know. It sounds like a crazy, impossible number. But as you're about to see, it's actually the goal of this whole system, and it's totally achievable. It's like having a map of your entire educational universe before you even lay the first brick. And let's be clear, this isn't just some fun thought experiment. You see that number? That's the potential annual revenue from a platform with all 144 courses up and running. This is a real business, and what we're looking at today is the blueprint to build it.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. We're going to start with the big picture, the 30,000-foot view. And then we're going to zoom in layer by layer. We'll cover the 7 core domains, the 12 archetypes, and then get right down to a solid 12-month plan to get your first 24 courses off the ground.
First things first, how in the world do you even begin to organize 144 different ideas? Well, you start big. You start with the largest possible categories you can think of. These are like the foundational continents of your entire educational world.
So what exactly is a domain? It's basically a massive category of knowledge. Think of something like technology or health and wellness. The continent metaphor is just perfect here because it immediately helps you visualize the scale and the structure we're dealing with.
And this whole system is built on these 7 core domains right here. Each one represents a huge addressable market, and a lot of them are pretty underserved by traditional education. We're talking about a huge range, from super technical stuff like AI prompting to creative pursuits like music and even deeply personal areas like faith. These are your starting territories.
Okay, so if the domains are our continents, how do we start mapping the huge landscape inside them? Well, that's where our next layer comes in, the 12 archetypes.
An archetype is just a universal pattern, a type of professional identity. These are the countries inside each continent. And trust me, this isn't just clever naming, this is the absolute key to building your platform with some serious efficiency and scale.
And this is where it gets really powerful. Take the healer, for instance. This archetype includes people like doctors, nurses, therapists. You get the idea. They all share similar problems, right? Like burnout from paperwork. This means you can create some core content just once and then reuse it across multiple courses. And you can market to all of them with a really similar message. That is the genius of this system.
Okay, we have our continents, the domains. We have our countries, the archetypes. Now it is time to pinpoint the exact cities where your students live. This is the moment where that huge 144 course matrix finally clicks into place.
And you know what? It all comes down to this one simple formula. You take a domain, you multiply it by an archetype, you multiply that by a specific profession, and boom, that equals one course vector. Each vector isn't just a vague idea, it's a single, complete, and super targeted course that's ready to go.
And this chart just shows you exactly how it works. Let's take the prompting domain. You combine that with the healer archetype and the nurse profession, and you get prompting for nurses. Easy. Or combine it with the guardian archetype and the lawyer profession, and you get prompting for lawyers. See? Each one is a unique, sellable product.
Now, a blueprint is powerful, for sure, but it's not going to build itself. So now that we get the architecture, how do we actually decide what to build first? To get the biggest bang for our buck.
You use this simple but really powerful priority matrix. All you do is plot every potential course idea based on two things: how big the market is, that's your x-axis, and how badly they need a solution, that's your y-axis. Your first courses should always be right here, in that top right corner, a huge market with a critical problem that you can solve.
And to get even more specific, just ask yourself these 5 questions before you start building anything. 1. Do you have the expertise or can you get it? 2. Is the audience big enough? 3. Is their problem actually urgent? 4. Is there a clear return on investment for them? And finally, number 5. Are you actually excited to build it? Because that passion is what's going to get you through.
Okay, last piece of the puzzle, the roadmap. This is how we take that massive goal of 144 courses and make it feel real, starting with a solid plan to conquer your very first domain in just 1 year.
This timeline breaks it right down. You start with 5 courses in your first quarter. But here's the key. As you build templates and get more experience, your production speed goes way up. By the second quarter, you're building a new course almost every single week. So finishing 24 courses, an entire domain, in 12 months, it's not just possible, it's the plan.
And remember that business case we talked about? Well, completing that first domain of 24 courses in your first year could bring in over $200,000 in revenue. This framework is designed to build a real business, not just a weekend project.
So let's just put it all together real quick. The structure? That comes from your 7 domains. The system for efficiency? That's the 12 archetypes. The formula? Vector equals course, that maps out your entire catalog. The strategy is to go after large markets with high pain. And the plan makes building 24 courses in 12 months totally doable.
I just love this quote from the source material. It perfectly captures that shift in mindset you get from this architecture. You go from having this vague idea to having a detailed map of a territory that is just ready and waiting for you to conquer.
So that's it. That's the architecture, a complete, scalable, and strategic blueprint for a 144-course educational empire. The map is officially in your hands, so the only question left is, what are you going to build first?
All right, let's talk about one of the biggest hurdles for any creator out there. How do you take that storm of brilliant ideas you have and turn it into a smooth, predictable, and honestly, powerful content machine? We're going to dive right into building that system. You know the feeling, right? You've got scripts half done over here, video files with crazy names over there, and you have no real clue what stage any given project is in. It's that treadmill of feeling busy all the time, but not actually finishing anything. That, my friend, is content chaos. And today, we're going to put an end to it. So here's the game plan. First, we'll talk about making that crucial shift from pure chaos to a real system. Then we'll get into the guts of it, a 9-step production pipeline. After that,
I'll show you how to track it all, keep your files organized, and the best part, how to scale this whole thing up for a team.
So, what's the big picture here? It's all about building a repeatable production pipeline. Seriously, think of it like an assembly line, but for your knowledge. The goal is super clear: to have a system where any idea you have can go in one end and pop out the other as a fully launched, amazing course, every single time.
And this is the heart of the entire operation. This 9-step production pipeline is the engine that's going to power everything you create. And it's not just some random to-do list. It's a logical step-by-step flow that completely eliminates all the guesswork.
Let's walk through it. See, it all starts with your raw text content. That gets turned into an audio guide. Maybe you use a tool like Notebook LM to help you script it out. That audio then becomes the blueprint for a mind map video. From there, you get into the nitty-gritty, splitting the video, creating some simple visuals, we call them napkin diagrams, and then pushing it out to platforms like Teachable and YouTube. The final, crucial step? You close the loop by updating your master tracker. Each step just flows right into the next. It's seamless.
And here's one of the most beautiful things about having a system: predictability. Once you're running this pipeline, you can pretty much guarantee that a full course will take you somewhere between 40 and 55 hours to produce. No more wild guesses. You know exactly what you're getting into, which is an absolute game changer for planning. Okay, so you have the pipeline, but how in the world do you manage it all? Well, you need a central nervous system for your operation, a single place where you can see everything that's happening at a glance. Think of it like your own personal mission control.
And that mission control is Airtable. It becomes your production hub, your single source of truth. Every single course, every module, its exact status in that 9-step pipeline, it all lives right here. This just completely wipes out any confusion and makes sure everybody knows exactly where things are.
Now, the real power is in how you set it up. You have one central table for all your courses. Then, and this is the cool part, you use formulas to automatically track the progress as you check off each of the 9 steps. You can even create custom views so you only see what you need to work on today. And you know what the best part is? You can grab a downloadable template and get started like right now.
Right, so we're tracking our progress, but what about all the actual files? You know, the scripts, the raw video, the diagrams, all of it. For that, you need a digital warehouse, a place where everything is stored logically, not just dumped into some messy folder named final_v2_final. And that digital library, we're going to build it on Google Drive. But listen, the tool isn't the magic here. The system is. We're talking about a ruthlessly consistent structure for naming your folders and your files. It makes finding anything totally effortless. And, as you'll see, it's what makes automation possible down the road. And this is the blueprint. It's simple. Every course gets its own folder, named with a unique number. Inside that, you have subfolders for each of the production steps. The files are named with that same level of precision. And this isn't just about being tidy. Trust me, this consistency is what lets you hand off tasks to team members without a 30-minute explanation. So why all this obsessive organization? Why does it matter so much? Because of this number. This system isn't built to handle 10 courses. It's built to scale to 144 courses. And way beyond that. It's designed for massive, massive output without ever falling apart. And that kind of scale naturally brings us to the next evolution, doesn't it? Bringing on a team. A system like this isn't just for you. It's the rock-solid foundation that lets you go from being a one-person show to leading an entire production crew. Just look at the difference here. The solo creator is doing everything, right? You're a single point of failure with messy manual handoffs. But a team running on a system, they have defined processes. They have quality checks built right in. It allows for strategic delegation. You stop being the person who does everything, and you become the person who orchestrates everything. And you make that happen with a few key workflows. You've got to have crystal clear handoff points between each step of the pipeline. You need quality checkpoints to make sure the standards are always met. And you have to be able to delegate tasks with total confidence, knowing that the system itself is going to guide the process. As we wrap up, it really all comes back to this one simple idea. The whole point of the pipeline, the tracking, the organization, it's all designed to do one thing, to transform that creative chaos into an unstoppable system. Because once you have that reliable, scalable machine for making your content, the only question left
is the most exciting one of all. Now that your system is built, what are you going to create? Okay, let's just jump right in with a wild idea. What if you could take a process that normally takes, say, 3 months, all that grinding, writing, editing, and just squeeze it all into a single 3-hour work session? I know it sounds completely out there, right? But stick with me, because we're about to break down a system that actually does it. It literally turns content creation into a high-speed production line. Right, let's really look at this. The visual here, honestly, it says everything. On one side, you've got the old way, a slow 3-month slog to build out a single 12-module course. And on the other, the new way, a straight line, that exact same course, done and dusted in the time it takes to watch a long movie. We're not talking about a tiny little improvement here. This is a total revolution in how we think about productivity.
So how is this even possible? Well, it's not magic. It's a really well-designed system. And we're going to walk through the 4 core parts that make this whole factory run. First, the template system that forms the foundation. Then, the prompt library, which is like our set of power tools. After that, the batch production workflow. That's the assembly line. And finally, the all-important quality control at the end.
Okay, let's get into the first pillar of our content factory, the template system. You can think of this as the architectural blueprint. It's what gets rid of all the repetitive work and gives us a solid structure for everything we're about to build.
This whole thing is built in 3 layers, kind of like a pyramid. At the very bottom, the broadest part, we have universal templates for things that are the same everywhere, like the basic structure of a module. Then we get a little more specific with domain templates, which are for a particular subject. And at the very top, the sharpest point, are the vector templates, which add all the super custom, profession-specific details.
And this is where you really see the power of the system. Imagine writing one little universal template. Let's say for how you format a learning objective. You write it one time, and then you can reuse that single piece of work across a library of 144 different courses. I mean, that is the definition of working smarter. So, with our foundation in place, it's time to talk about the engine of this whole factory, a powerful, reusable prompt library. If the templates are the blueprints, these prompts are the high-tech power tools that do all the heavy lifting. And we're not talking about just a few generic prompts you copied and pasted. Nope, we're talking about building a really sophisticated toolkit with over 50 specialized version-controlled prompts. Each one is designed using a specific framework like CRAFT, which stands for Context, Role, Action, Format, and Tone. This level of detail is what lets you engineer a prompt to give you a very specific, high-quality result every single time. Now, here's where it gets really crazy. This library doesn't just build your course content. It powers your entire ecosystem. Need a script for the audio version? There's a prompt for that. Need some punchy marketing copy for the launch or a few social media posts? The same system just churns it all out for you. All right, let's see how this all comes together. We've got the blueprints, we've got the tools. Now it's time to fire up the assembly line with a batch production workflow. This is where the insane speed really comes from. So instead of building one course from start to finish, you process a whole bunch of them at the same time. In week 1, your only job is to generate all the text for, say, 5 courses. Week 2, you do all the audio for those same 5 courses. You see? You stick to one kind of task at a time, but you do it across the entire batch. And why is this so much better? It all comes down to cutting out context switching. You know that feeling of jumping between writing, then recording, then editing, then back to writing? It's a massive waste of mental energy. Batching lets you get in the zone, stay in that state of flow, and just crush your output. And the result of this whole assembly line approach? It's not a small bump. We're talking about a staggering 3 to 5 times increase in your overall production speed. You're not just working faster, you're operating on a totally different playing field. But I know what you're probably thinking. Speed is cool, but what about quality? You're right. Pumping out tons of content is useless if it's, well, junk. So let's talk about the final and maybe the most important stage, quality control. So the goal isn't to get 100% perfection straight out of the AI. That's not realistic. The target is to get the system to consistently give you content that's 80% of the way there, or even better, on the very first try. That means your job changes from being a writer to being a high-level editor, just polishing that last 20%. Now, what's really cool about this slide is it shows that quality isn't just one simple checkmark. It's a whole process with multiple layers. We're talking standardized checklists, reviews by actual subject matter experts, and even getting students to beta test a course before it ever goes live.
And this, right here, is what makes the whole system so powerful. The factory actually gets smarter as it goes. Every bit of feedback, every little correction you make, it doesn't just fix one thing. It gets fed back into the templates and the prompts, which means the system's baseline quality just keeps getting better and better with every single course it makes.
So when you put it all together, what this explainer is really showing us is a fundamental shift in your role. You're no longer the person on the assembly line manually building every little piece. You become the manager of the entire factory. You're overseeing, refining, and scaling the system that does the heavy lifting for you. So we'll just leave you with this final thought. When you can literally create a year's worth of content in a single month, all the old excuses and limitations just evaporate. The question is no longer if you can build that big idea you've been dreaming of. The only question left is, what are you going to build first? Are you feeling totally buried by the amount of video you're supposed to be creating? You know, the idea of producing hours and hours of really high-quality content, it can feel impossible. Well, stick around because we are about to pull back the curtain on a modern workflow that turns that huge task into something that's actually simple and, believe it or not, repeatable. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's set a goal. Imagine you need to create one big, comprehensive video course. And the final runtime? A full 6 hours. Yeah. Just thinking about recording and editing all of that is enough to make you want to quit before you even press record. But that's not even the whole story. Because on top of those 6 hours of video, you also need to whip up 120 professional-looking diagrams to make sure all your key concepts really land. I mean, that is a mountain of content. But today, we're going to learn how to climb it and conquer it in record time. So here's our game plan. We're going to start with a pretty radical way to record, then dive into a revolutionary way to edit. After that, we'll generate visuals with what feels like magic, and finally, we'll tie it all together with a pro-level strategy called batching. By the end of this, I promise, this whole process is going to feel less like a chore and more like your new superpower. First up, the one-take record. This is the foundation of the entire system. The idea is to capture all of your raw footage in one single, focused, high-energy session. No stopping, no redos, just pure, uninterrupted creation. So, what do you need for this marathon session? Well, first, you need some solid screen capture software. Something like OBS Studio is perfect. Second, and this is key, you're not going to use a normal slide deck. No. You're going to use a mind map from a tool like MindMeister or Miro. See, unlike stiff, rigid slides, a mind map lets you just flow through your topics naturally, which makes your delivery feel way more conversational. You'll still have an outline, of course, to keep you on track, but the most crucial part? High energy. You have to maintain that enthusiasm for the whole 6 to 8 hour session. It's a sprint, for sure. All right, you did it. You survived the recording session. But now you've got this massive video file sitting on your computer. This is where the real magic starts. We're going to edit this monster not by scrubbing through some complex, painful timeline, but by editing a simple text document. Yeah, you heard that right. Just look at the difference here. The old way, painstakingly scrubbing through timelines, making tiny manual cuts, hunting down all the dead air. It's a nightmare. The new way, using a text-based editor like Descript, is a whole different world. The software automatically transcribes everything you said, and if you want to cut a part of the video, you just find the words and delete the text. The video gets deleted with it. It's really that simple. And the automation is just incredible. With a couple of clicks, the software zaps all your ums and ahs, it tightens up those awkward pauses, it automatically adds captions for you, and it can even create chapters. For our giant 6-hour recording, it can instantly chop that one huge file into 36 separate, clean video clips. This isn't just about saving time. This completely changes your relationship with editing. It goes from being this tedious technical chore to a totally creative process. Okay, video's edited, polished, done. But what about those 120 diagrams? Let's talk visuals. Forget about spending days messing around in some design tool. We're going to generate them instantly.
So here's how it works. You use a tool like napkin.ai, and you literally just write a sentence describing the visual you want. In this example, we're asking for a diagram that shows the exact workflow we're talking about right now. You just type what you need in plain English. No design skills required.
And bam!
Just like that, you get a great-looking professional diagram. The real power here is how you can scale this up. You can just repeat this super simple process to generate, say, 10 unique diagrams for every single module until all 120 are done, and you never had to open a traditional design program. It's wild. Okay, so we've got the pieces, right? A way to record fast, edit fast, and create visuals fast. Now for the pro move, the thing that ties it all together, batching. This is what separates the people who are just efficient from the people who are true production machines.
So instead of making one course from start to finish and then another, you batch all the similar tasks together. This timeline shows how you could produce five full courses in just 3 weeks. In week 1, you do nothing but record. All day, every day, just recording. Week 2, you're in editor mode. You do nothing but edit. And in week 3, it's all about visuals. You generate every single diagram you need for all 5 courses.
So why does this work so well? Well, for one, you're not constantly setting up your camera and mic, then tearing it down, then setting it up again. You do it once. Second, you get perfect visual consistency because you're creating all your diagrams in the same focused window of time. But the most important reason, it lets you get into a state of deep focus. You're tackling one kind of task at a time, which is where real productivity, real flow actually happens.
So, when you put all of these pieces together, it's really more than just a few tips and tricks. It's a complete end-to-end system, and it truly becomes your content creation superpower. So let's just recap the whole system one more time. You record everything in one long take using a mind map. You edit by deleting words in a transcript. You generate all your visuals from simple text prompts, and then you scale the entire operation by batching each stage of the process. Record, edit, generate, batch. That's the formula. This workflow really changes the entire game. It just removes all those technical hurdles and time sinks that stop so many amazing ideas from ever becoming a reality. So the final question isn't how you're going to make your content anymore. The question is, now that production is basically solved, what are you going to create?
All right, let's jump right in. What we're about to cover is honestly a game changer. We're going to break down exactly how you can take just one online course you've already created and turn it into a massive content library of at least 148 pieces. Seriously, this isn't about creating more work for yourself. It's about being incredibly smart with the work you've already done.
So let's start with a painful question, one you've probably asked yourself. You spend months, maybe even a year, pouring everything you have into an amazing course. You finally hit that publish button and nothing, just crickets. Why? Why does this happen all the time?
Well, here's the thing, and it might surprise you. It's almost never because the course is bad. It fails because nobody knows it exists. The problem isn't your product, it's the deafening silence all around it. You just haven't built up an audience that's excited and ready to buy.
Now, what if I told you that the solution to breaking that silence is already sitting right there, inside the course you already made? Yep. Hiding inside that single asset are at least 148 different pieces of content, just waiting to go out and find your audience for you. Let's dig into how that's even possible.
This brings us to the core idea here, the content multiplication workflow. I want you to start thinking of your course not just as a product, but as the raw fuel for a content factory. You put your one course in one end, and out the other comes this nonstop automated marketing machine.
So what in the world is content multiplication? It's really simple, actually. It's the strategy of taking one big, valuable piece of content, your course, and just slicing and dicing it. You break it down into dozens of smaller, bite-sized pieces so you can share them everywhere your future students are already hanging out.
Okay, here's the whole roadmap in 4 simple steps. First, it all starts with your course. That's the source of everything. Second, we create what's called pillar content from it. Third, we chop that up into tons of micro content. And finally, step 4, we build a funnel to turn all that attention into actual sales.
All right, let's get into the first big step, creating your pillar content. Think of these as the big, foundational pieces that are gonna do the heavy lifting. They are the main engines that will help new people discover you and your work.
So, from that single course, we're going to generate 2 types of pillar content. First, you'll get around 36 separate YouTube videos. You can make one for each key lesson or idea. Then, you just take the audio from every 3 videos, bundle them together, and boom,
you've got 12 long-form podcast episodes. And the real beauty of this whole thing? You're serving two totally different types of people with basically no extra work. The YouTube videos are perfect for your visual learners. And the podcast? That grabs all the people who listen while they're driving, at the gym, or walking the dog. It's brilliant.
But listen, just uploading videos to YouTube isn't going to cut it. You have to be strategic. This means using AI tools to get your titles and descriptions just right for the algorithm, organizing your videos into smart playlists, and using things like cards and end screens to point people back to your course. The first big milestone? Get to 1,000 subscribers.
And what about the podcast? Well, for the podcast, the name of the game is distribution, distribution, distribution. You take that audio and you put it everywhere. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. You want to be on every platform your audio lovers might be listening on.
Okay, now we get to the fun part. This is where we create a literal flood of content. We're going to take that pillar content we just made and we're going to atomize it, break it into tiny pieces, and create over 100 new ways for people to find you.
No, you heard that right. 100. Plus, from those 36 YouTube videos, you're going to pull out over 100 short, punchy, attention-grabbing clips. This is where the real magic happens, where the content just explodes. And remember, this all came from that one course you already finished.
Now, these little clips have a very specific job. They've got to be short, like 30 to 60 seconds max. You've got to post them a lot. We're talking 3 to 5 times a day to stay at the top of the feeds. And their only purpose is to act like little signposts, pointing people back to your big YouTube videos or right to your course sales page.
So where do all these clips go? Everywhere that matters. You unleash this high-volume attack across all the key social platforms. You've got LinkedIn for the professional crowd, X for those quick-hit insights, and of course, the big ones, Instagram and TikTok for that vertical video domination. Okay, so a flood of content sounds amazing, right? But it also sounds exhausting. This next part is all about building the engine that automates your reach so you're not doing it all by hand. And most importantly, it's about how we turn all this new attention into actual paying students.
Let's be real. You cannot manually post 5 times a day across 4 different platforms. You'd go crazy. It's simply not sustainable. This is where automation becomes your best friend. You have to use scheduling tools like Buffer to plan and batch all your content way in advance. That way, your marketing machine basically runs on autopilot.
All this traffic you're generating is fantastic, but it's just floating in the air until you capture it. And that's where the email funnel comes in. It's the most critical piece. It's a system designed to turn a casual viewer into an email subscriber and then, over time, into a happy customer, all with automated emails.
So how does this funnel actually work? Well, first you offer something valuable for free, like a checklist or a short guide, in exchange for their email address. Once they're on your list, an automated 7-email welcome sequence kicks in to build trust. After that, you're set up to launch your courses and keep them hooked with great content every week.
So what's the end goal here? What are we shooting for? The target is to convert a really solid 10 to 20% of your entire email list into paying students. This gives you a real, tangible, measurable result for your whole content system. It's not just about getting views, it's about getting students.
Wow, okay, we have covered a ton of ground. So let's take a step back, zoom out, and look at the whole system one last time. Let's recap how your one course becomes this incredible, self-powering content factory.
This table really brings it all home. Let's just walk through it one more time. The input, one course. That's it. The first output is your pillar content. 36 videos for YouTube, 12 podcast episodes for places like Spotify and Apple. Then, those videos get chopped up into over 100 social clips for platforms like LinkedIn and TikTok. And finally, all that traffic gets funneled into your email system, with the goal of turning 10 to 20% of them into students. It's a perfect closed-loop machine.
So we'll end on this thought. You've already done the hardest part. You built the asset. You made the course. The value is there. The knowledge is locked inside. The only real question left is, are you ready to finally build the engine that's going to share that value with the rest of the world?
So you've got this amazing course idea, this expertise you're ready to share with the world, but then you hit a wall, right? Where do you actually build the thing? Today, we're going to settle that debate. We're breaking down the big 3, Teachable, School, and Kajabi, so you can pick your starting gate and get in the race.
I mean, you've done all the hard work already. You know your topic inside and out, you've got your lessons planned,
And then this one question pops up and stops you dead in your tracks. Where do I host it? It can literally paralyze even the most excited creator before they've even started.
And look, I get why. It feels like this huge permanent decision. Because it's not just about the tech, is it? It's about the vibe you want to create for your students, and honestly, the kind of business you're trying to build. So, let's clear that hurdle together right now.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll meet the contenders. Then, we'll throw them into a head-to-head comparison. After that, I'll give you a super simple decision framework to find your perfect match. And finally, we'll talk about what really matters once you look past the shiny tech.
Okay, first things first, let's get to know our 3 key players. To really make the right call, you gotta understand what each one is all about. Think of them less like software and more like, well, like different kinds of campuses, each with its own unique feel.
First up, we've got Teachable. This is your classic digital classroom. No frills, no fuss. If your goal is just to upload your videos, add some PDFs, and sell your course as directly as possible, Teachable is your guy. It's pretty much the go-to for beginners for that very reason.
Next, there's School. And this one, it's a totally different animal. Imagine your course isn't in a quiet library, but in the middle of a bustling campus coffee shop or a social club. School is built from the ground up for community. The conversation is the course.
And finally, we have the behemoth, Kajabi. If Teachable is a classroom and School is a social club, Kajabi is the entire university administration building. It handles everything, your courses, your email marketing, your website, your sales funnels, the whole shebang. It's an absolute powerhouse, but it's really built for people running a serious online business.
All right, now for the really fun part, the head-to-head matchup. Let's put these 3 side by side and see how they really stack up when you look at the core details.
So check this out. This table just lays it all out so clearly. You've got Teachable, perfect for beginners, super simple interface, and it starts at that really accessible $39 a month. Then there's School in the middle, laser-focused on community with a clean, modern style for a flat $99 a month. And then, way over on the other end, is Kajabi, the all-in-one beast for advanced users with a complex system and a price tag to match.
And wow, this chart really puts the price tags into perspective, doesn't it? I mean, look at that jump from Teachable to School, and then another big leap up to Kajabi. Your budget is a huge deal when you're starting out, and this makes it crystal clear what kind of investment we're talking about from day one.
Okay, so we've got all this info, now what? How do you actually decide? Let's make this simple. Forget all the little features for a second and just ask yourself one question. What is my absolute #1 priority?
If your answer is, I just want to get my course online as fast and as cheap as possible, then honestly, it's not even a contest. Teachable is the hands-down winner. It has the lowest barrier to entry, both in terms of how easy it is to use and what it's going to cost you.
But what if your goal is different? What if you're thinking learning happens when people talk and share ideas? If you want an interactive, buzzing community, then School is designed specifically for you. Literally every feature is there to get your students talking to each other.
And then there's the other side. If you're tired of duct taping 10 different software tools together, one for email, one for landing pages, another for the course itself, and you just want one single command center to run your entire online empire, well then Kajabi is your answer. It's a serious investment, but it brings everything under one roof.
Okay, so choosing a platform feels like the whole battle. But let's be real for a second. The fanciest platform in the world can't save a boring, confusing course. The technology is just the car. You still have to actually build a good road for your students to drive on.
So no matter which one you pick, a solid structure is it's non-negotiable. Break your course down into logical modules. 12 is a pretty good number to aim for. Make sure each lesson builds on the last one. Give people helpful downloads and let them see their progress. It gives them a clear path to the finish line.
And you've got to think about the student. What's it like for them to actually use your course? Can they find what they're looking for? Does it look good on their phone? Is your video clear and crisp? Can they feel a sense of accomplishment? These little things are what separate a good course from a great one.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's that there is no single best platform. It just doesn't exist. There's only the best platform for you right now. Be honest about your main goal, what you can afford, and the experience you're trying to create. The answer will point you right to your perfect tool.
So you've picked your platform, you've built your course, the tech part is handled. But now the real fun begins, right? Now you have to ask yourself, How do I turn this finished course into a thriving business with actual paying students? That's the next big adventure.
Hey, welcome. Today, we're going to break down the exact blueprint for building a seriously successful online education business. And I'm not talking about vague ideas. We're talking about a clear, step-by-step path to hitting a massive goal.
And that goal? It's this number right here, $100,000 every single month. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds huge, maybe even impossible. But trust me, it's a real, tangible target. And that's exactly what this roadmap is all about today.
So the big question is, how do you actually build a business that gets you there? Look, it's not about luck. It's not about magic. It's about having a solid strategy for your pricing, a smart business model, and a totally flawless execution plan. So let's dive in and unpack that exact strategy step by step.
Okay, first things first. Everything, and I mean everything, starts right here with your pricing. But listen, this isn't about just picking a number out of thin air. It's about deeply understanding the real, tangible value you are giving to your students.
And this right here, it's a huge mindset shift. You've got to forget how many hours it took you to build the course. Honestly, that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the outcome you deliver for your customer. What problem are you solving for them? And more importantly, how much is that solution actually worth to them?
And you know what? We can actually put a number on that value. Let's take an example. Say your course saves a professional 400 hours a year. And let's say their time is worth, $50 an hour. You do the math. The total value you're delivering is a whopping $20,000. That's huge.
This brings us straight to this really powerful idea called value-based pricing. And the strategy is super simple. You figure out that total value, that 20 grand we just talked about, and you set your price at just a tiny fraction of it.
So what does that actually look like in practice? Well, a really common way to do this is to price your course at about 10% of that total value. So in our $20,000 example, that puts you right in that pricing sweet spot of, say, $297 to $497. See what's happening? You're delivering this immense value, and the price just feels like an absolute steal in comparison.
All right. So we've got our pricing foundation totally locked in. Now we need the right vehicle to actually deliver our product. And that brings us to the next big decision, choosing your business model. So you've basically got 4 main paths you can take. First, you can just sell your courses one by one. Super simple, very direct. Or you could offer a subscription to a bundle of related courses, which is awesome for that sweet, sweet recurring revenue. If you've got a big library of content, an all-access pass can turn your business into a real platform. And finally, you can do a hybrid model, mixing and matching to get the most out of every single student.
Okay, we've got our price, we've got our business model. Now it is time for ignition, the launch. This is where the rubber meets the road, where we turn our plan into actual paying customers and start building some serious momentum.
Now, a great launch isn't just a one-day thing. It's a whole process that unfolds over time. You start weeks ahead with a pre-launch, building hype and getting your email list excited. Then comes the super important step, a beta launch. You offer a big discount to a small group, maybe 10 or 20 students, to get crucial feedback and those all-important testimonials. Then, around week 8, you're ready for the big public launch. And after that, you put it on Evergreen, automating your sales for consistent, reliable enrollment.
And this is where it all just comes together. When you combine that smart pricing, the right model, and a killer launch strategy, you don't just grow, you hit what I like to call escape velocity.
And here's what that actually looks like in terms of revenue. We're not talking about a slow burn here. This is an exponential curve. Following this roadmap, you could realistically hit $50,000 in revenue in just your first 3 months. By the end of your first year, you're on a path to nearly $250,000. The growth potential is just, it's incredible.
You know, what's truly mind-blowing about this whole business model is the economics behind it. I mean, just look at this. We are talking about 80% profit margins. That's wild. And it's because you're selling a digital product, right? Your costs are incredibly low. It's mostly just for some software tools and maybe a little bit for ads.
And that's the real magic, isn't it? You create this amazing asset one time, but you can sell it an infinite number of times. Plus, as you add more and more courses, the value of your entire platform just keeps going up. It creates this powerful flywheel effect for your business that just keeps spinning faster and faster.
So, there you have it. We've covered the foundation of pricing your value, the vehicle of choosing your business model, and the ignition of a perfect launch. And it all leads to this incredible scale. The entire roadmap is laid out right in front of you. So really, the only question left is the one you see on the screen. Are you ready to build your platform?
All right, here we are, your final module. And let me tell you, this isn't just another lesson. This is it. This is your blueprint. It's the complete roadmap that takes you from where you're standing right now all the way to building a multi-million-dollar educational media company. Think of it this way. This is the last step of your training and the very first step of your new life as a platform builder. I really want you to let that sink in for a second. Right now, in this moment, everything changes. The whole phase of just learning the theory, that's over. The real work, the exciting work of actually building your educational empire, that starts now. Your identity has officially changed. Now, before we even talk about the first step, we need to get a super clear picture of the destination. You gotta know what the mountain peak looks like, right? So we're starting at the summit. This is the big vision, a 14 four-course educational media company that absolutely dominates your niche. But of course, you don't conquer a summit in a single jump. Every huge goal is really just about conquering the small steps right in front of you. So let's set up our base cap. This is your game plan for the next 90 days, designed to build some serious, unstoppable momentum. And the plan is, well, it's just beautifully simple and pretty aggressive. We've broken it down into 3 30-day sprints. The first 30 days are all about the foundation, getting your tools set up and launching that very first course. Then, days 31 to 60, we hit expansion, where you're going to rapidly create more courses. And finally, days 61 to 90 is all about scale, launching to the public and really hitting that critical mass. So, what's the result of this 90-day sprint? Well, it's not theoretical. We're talking 6. In just 3 months, you will have 6 complete courses produced and ready to go. I mean, that's a serious library of content, built in just 1 quarter. But here's the thing. It's not about creating content in a bubble, right? The most important piece is validation. By day 90, you're going to have over 100 paying students. 100 people who are voting with their wallets, confirming that what you've built is valuable and that the system actually works. And yep, let's be clear, this is a business from day 1. That validation, it comes with real financial momentum. Over $20,000 in revenue in your first 90 days. That proves the model, and, just as importantly, it gives you the cash and the confidence to scale up and scale up aggressively. So, all that powerful momentum you built at Basecamp, well, that's the fuel for your entire climb through the first year. Those first 90 days are just the launch pad for something way, way bigger. Check this out. By the end of year 1, these numbers just scale dramatically. You'll complete your first 24 courses, you'll be serving over 1,000 students, and generating anywhere from $200,000 to $400,000 in revenue. At this point, you're not just a project anymore. You are an established platform. And you're not going to do it alone. Growth shouldn't be guesswork. It should be systematic. You'll scale your team based on these exact revenue milestones. The second you hit 10K a month, you bring on a VA. At 20K, a video editor. See the pattern? This strategy lets you methodically pull yourself out of the day-to-day grind so you can work on the business, not just in it. Okay, so from that steady climb, that year 1 ascent, the summit finally comes into full view. This is it. This is the full, awe-inspiring potential of your 5-year plan. This is what you're building towards. This table right here, this lays out the entire journey. Just look at that compounding growth. By year 3, you're already crossing that $1 million revenue mark. And by year 5, you've done it. All 144 courses are complete. You're generating $2 to $3 million a year with a full team. You haven't just built a business, you've built a true media company. You know, the visual leap from a really successful first year to that year 5 enterprise, it is just staggering. This isn't just small, incremental growth, it's exponential. This is the journey from having a great business to building a legacy asset. And, you know, reaching this peak, it gives you these incredible options. On one hand, you can just keep the engine running, operate this highly profitable, system-driven company that gives you passive income and lets you make an impact. Or you can choose to exit. You can sell the platform for a life-changing amount of money. We're talking a potential $10 to $30 million event. Not bad, right?
So, we've seen the summit. We've mapped out the entire climb. It's breathtaking. But every single climb, I don't care how high it is, begins with one single step, right where you are right now.
Let's just be perfectly clear about where you're at. You are fully equipped.
You have the vision. You have the Dova framework. You have the AI and Airtable tools. You have the 9-step production system, the 144-course roadmap, and a whole community of fellow builders to back you up. So, with every single piece of the puzzle in place, all the strategy, all the tools, all the support, what is the single missing ingredient required to turn this whole vision into your actual reality? It's just one thing. The only thing missing from this entire equation is your commitment. Your personal decision to take that first step and set this whole machine in motion. This is the mindset you have to adopt right now. Dreamers wait for this idea of perfection that never, ever comes. Builders take action. They ship an imperfect version 1.0 because they know that helping people now is infinitely better than having a perfect plan that just stays in your head forever. That whole multi-million-dollar 5-year vision we just walked through, the team, the revenue, the life-changing exit, it doesn't start with some massive, complicated action. It all flows from one simple starting point. Your next action is crystal clear, no ambiguity. Close this down, open your AI tool, and generate Module 1 of your first course. Not tomorrow, not next week when you feel a little more ready, today. You finished the training. You are no longer a student. You are officially a builder. We are so looking forward to seeing what you create. Welcome to the next chapter. We'll see you in the Builder community. All right, so if you've ever built a web app, you're probably a pro with tools like PostgreSQL and Elasticsearch. You know your way around structuring and searching for data. But when you start building for AI, you realize pretty quickly that you need a completely new kind of foundation. So let me just ask you this. You're building those next-gen AI features, right? We're talking smarter search, better recommendations, maybe even an app using Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG. Are your go-to traditional tools really ready for that challenge? Well, the short answer is probably not. Okay, let's really dig into this. What we're running into is something people are calling the AI infrastructure gap. And it's basically this fundamental mismatch between how our trusted, old-school databases think about data and how modern AI models actually understand the world. They just speak different languages. And here it is, the heart of the problem. Traditional databases, they are absolutely brilliant at exact matches. You write a SQL query for the word apple, and it finds apple. It's precise, it's structured. But AI models, they think in terms of meaning. They understand that healthy snack is related to apple, even though the words don't match at all. It's a totally different way of organizing information, and that's why it needs a new kind of tool. So how in the world do we bridge this gap between rigid, structured queries and this fuzzy world of semantic meaning? The answer is a purpose-built solution, the vector database. And the absolute key to understanding vector databases is understanding the new kind of data they're built to manage, embeddings. So what exactly are embeddings? Well, you can think of them as the native language of AI. They're basically these numerical representations, just long lists of numbers that we call vectors. And their job is to translate a concept, like a word, a sentence, or even an image, into a format that captures its true meaning. Here's what that looks like in practice. A traditional database, it just stores the text apple. Simple. But a vector database stores this complex vector that's been generated by an AI model. And here's the magic. This vector places apple in a kind of high-dimensional space where it's mathematically super close to things like fruit and banana, but incredibly far away from car or computer. It's all about context, but encoded in math. Ah, the classic example. And there's a good reason it's so famous. It shows that embeddings aren't just random numbers. They actually encode relationships. I mean, the vector math here literally captures these abstract concepts of gender and royalty. When you can start doing math on ideas, well, that's when you can build some truly intelligent applications. Okay, so we get embeddings, but how does a vector database actually use them? Under the hood, it all really boils down to a core stack of 4 essential components. So first, you need the embeddings themselves, which you create from your data using an AI model. Second, you have the vector index. This is the secret sauce, really. It organizes millions or even billions of these vectors, so you can search them incredibly fast without having to check every single one. Third, you've got a storage layer to actually hold on to the vectors and any metadata. And finally, the query engine, which takes your search vector and efficiently finds its closest neighbors in that index. Now, it's so important to understand where this new tool fits in your stack.
A relational database is for your transactions and exact matches. A search engine like Elasticsearch, it's great for keywords, but a vector database is built for one job: finding semantic similarity at a massive scale. It is not meant for your ACID transactions, those guaranteed reliable data operations. So it doesn't replace your existing stack, it complements it. It adds a brand new capability specifically for AI.
All right, that's enough theory. Let's talk about what this technology actually does. Let's look at some real-world use cases where vector databases are solving huge problems right now. First up, semantic search. And this is a total game changer. Just imagine a user searching your help docs for how to reset my password. A simple keyword search might totally fail if your article is called changing your account credentials. But a vector database gets the intent behind the search. It knows those two phrases mean the same thing, and it serves up the correct document. This is all about relevance, not just matching text. And then you have retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, which is the engine behind so many of today's AI apps. Look, an LLM like GPT-4 is incredible, but it has no idea about your company's private data. So with RAG, when a user asks about your specific refund policy, the vector database first retrieves the relevant policy doc from your private knowledge base, and then it feeds it to the LLM as context. This is exactly how you get accurate, grounded, and safe answers from large language models. And hey, if you're thinking, is this just hype? Just look at this number. A 400% jump in job descriptions mentioning vector database in a single year. The market is practically screaming for people with these skills. This isn't a nice-to-have anymore. It's quickly becoming critical infrastructure and a core skill for any developer building with AI. So you've got the theory. Now what? Well, the most important thing you can do is move from theory to practice. Let's make this real. Let's talk about what you can do like this week to actually get started. Here is your action plan for this week. It's simple. First, try explaining this to someone else. It's the absolute best way to make sure you've got it down. Second, go sign up for a free managed vector database account, something like Pinecone. Third, just follow their quick start guide. Seriously, in about 30 minutes, you'll have inserted and queried your first vectors. And finally, play around with an API like OpenAI's to generate your own embeddings from some text. In just a few hours, you can have a real working prototype. Most developers are still just getting up to speed on this stack. By taking these first steps right now, you are putting yourself way ahead of the curve. Mastering this isn't just about learning another tool. It's about understanding the fundamental infrastructure for the next wave of applications. Your competitive advantage in this AI era, it truly starts right here.
Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we are cracking open vector databases to see what really makes them tick. How do they let us search for meaning itself across billions of documents and get an answer back in the blink of an eye? Let's get into it.
All right, let's just jump right in with the big question. Picture this. You've got billions, with a B, of documents. How in the world do you search for an idea, not just a keyword? Like, you're not looking for the word puppy. You're looking for the concept of a puppy. And you want to see stuff about dogs, pets, maybe even animal shelters. How do you get a computer to grasp that?
Well, the most obvious way to do this is, to just check everything. It's the brute force method. You take your query, you turn it into this long string of numbers. That's your vector. And then you compare it to every single other vector you have. One by one, yeah, it'll find you the perfect match for sure. But the catch? It's going to be so slow once you have any real amount of data.
And just look at how big this problem gets and how fast. We're talking about 6 gigabytes of RAM just to hold 1 million vectors. Not billions, 1 million. And a single search, it could take a whole second. In a world where we expect everything to be instant, a 1-second delay, that's forever. It's a total non-starter for any real application. No way.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. We've touched on the billion vector problem. Now we'll get into how we measure meaning, then the indexing magic that makes this all possible. After that, we'll look at some common architectures and wrap up with what you can do next.
All right, first up, how we measure meaning. So how do we even begin to turn a fuzzy idea into something a computer can work with? Actual numbers. It really comes down to two big ideas: vector embeddings and distance metrics.
So, a vector embedding, at the end of the day, it's just a list of numbers. But it's a special list of numbers. Think of it like a GPS coordinate for an idea in this giant high-dimensional map. And the really cool part,
The magic is that the AI models that generate these numbers are specifically trained to put similar ideas right next to each other on the map.
And you can see that right here. Makes it super clear. The vector for dog and puppy, they're practically neighbors. But the vector for table, that's miles away in a totally different part of town. That distance, that spatial relationship, that is how the machine understands meaning. It's the whole foundation this is built on.
Right, so we've got all these points floating around in this crazy high-dimensional space. So what's next? Well, we need a ruler. We need a way to actually measure how close or far apart they are. And that's exactly what a distance metric is. It's our ruler for measuring meaning.
And it turns out there are a few different kinds of rulers you can use. The one you'll see most often, especially for text, is cosine similarity. It's all about the angle between two vectors, not how long they are. That's why it's so good at knowing that car and cars are pretty much the same thing. For something like images, though, you might want Euclidean distance. That's just the good old-fashioned straight line between 2 points, because there, the intensity or magnitude might actually matter a lot.
Okay, now for the really cool part, the indexing magic. We already know that checking every single vector is a total dead end. So, what's the secret sauce? How do we search billions of things in just milliseconds? The answer is a super clever process called indexing.
So here's the big idea, the key trade-off. We make a really smart sacrifice. We decide that we don't need the 100% guaranteed perfect answer every single time. Instead, we'll settle for a good enough answer that's still, incredibly good, but we get it back fast, like ridiculously fast. This whole approach is called Approximate Nearest Neighbor, or ANN, and it is the game changer.
One of the most popular ways to do this is with an index called HSNW. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like using Google Maps. You start your search on the top layer, which is like the interstate highway system. Not many roads, but they get you into the right general area really fast. Then you get off the highway and drop down to the local streets, which are way denser, and you navigate to your final destination. It's just a brilliant and super efficient way to find what you're looking for.
Okay, another really common method is IVF, or Inverted File Index. This one is more like having a super organized filing cabinet. What it does is, ahead of time, it groups all of your vectors into different buckets or folders. Then, when your query comes in, the system just has to figure out which 1 or 2 buckets are most relevant. It then only looks inside those buckets, totally ignoring the rest. It's a classic divide and conquer move, and it's super effective.
So which one should you use? Well, this little table is a pretty great cheat sheet. If you've got a really small data set, like under 10,000 items, honestly, don't even worry about it. Brute force is totally fine. Once you start getting up towards 1 million, HNSW is a fantastic choice for high accuracy and speed. But when you get to the really big stuff, millions and beyond, you'll often see IVF paired with other tricks to get the best possible balance of speed, accuracy, and, really importantly, cost.
All right, so we've got the building blocks, embeddings, distance metrics, and these magical indexes. So now let's talk about how these all come together in the real world. What do these systems actually look like?
You'll basically run into 3 main flavors. First up, you've got serverless stuff like Pinecone. This is the don't worry about it option. It's fully managed, it scales for you, and it's perfect when you just want to get moving fast. On the other end, you have self-hosted options like Quadrant. This is for when you want total control and need to fine-tune everything yourself. And then there's a third category, embedded databases like ChromaDB. These actually run inside your application, which makes them awesome for prototyping or for apps that need to work offline.
And check this out, this shows you where every precious millisecond goes. In a pretty standard 100 millisecond query, look at that. Half of the entire time is spent just on the vector index search itself. That's huge. And it just goes to show why picking the right index and tuning it correctly is so critical. It's literally the biggest piece of the puzzle.
Wow, okay, we have covered a lot of ground here, from abstract ideas about meaning all the way down to system architecture. So let's bring it all together and talk about what you can actually do to turn all this theory into practice.
Okay, if you remember just one thing from this whole explainer, let it be this. Everything, and I mean everything in the world of vector databases comes down to this core trade-off between speed, accuracy, and cost. It's a constant balancing act. You can optimize for any 2, but getting all 3 perfectly is the dream everyone is chasing. You have to know what matters most for your use case.
So, to make this real for you, here's a challenge. 3 simple things you can try this week. 1. Go play with a couple of different embedding models. See what happens when you use a smaller vector versus a bigger one. 2. Grab some data and test out the different distance metrics we talked about. And 3, probably the most important of all, sit down and write out your own needs. How much data will you have? How fast do your queries need to be? That's going to be your guide for everything else.
Because at the end of the day, there is no such thing as the single best vector database. There's no perfect index for every situation. This whole field is about making smart choices and informed trade-offs that fit what you're trying to build. The real goal isn't finding the best tool on the planet, it's about finding the best tool for your planet, your data, your users, your goals. So the question to leave you with is, what trade-off are you going to make?
Okay, so we've all heard the buzz about vector databases, right? But how do you actually use one? You know, how do you go from that cool concept to a real working application? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do right now. We're breaking down the core patterns and the best practices you need to build your very first vector app, step by step.
So let's kick things off with a problem that I'm sure drives us all crazy. You type something into a search bar, and it just gives you back results with your exact words, completely missing what you meant. It's so frustrating, isn't it? The search bar is just being literal. It's not being intelligent. Well, not yet, anyway.
In this right here is the big shift. Over on the left, you've got your traditional keyword search. It's basically just a word matching game. But on the right, that's semantic search. It doesn't hunt for words, it understands the meaning behind them. And that idea, that's the core of everything we're about to build.
So let's dive into our first and probably most fundamental pattern, semantic search. Think of this as the foundation, the starting point for building apps that can genuinely understand what a user is asking for.
You know, what's so cool about this is how simple the process really is. It's just 3 steps. First, we generate embeddings, which is just a fancy way of saying we turn our text into numbers or vectors that capture its meaning. Second, we insert those vectors into our database. And third, we search that database not with keywords, but with the meaning of our question. It's a completely different way to think about finding information.
And you see the results immediately. I mean, look at this. The query is what stores vectors, and the top result is vector databases store embeddings with a super high relevance score. Now notice, the question and the answer barely share any of the same words, but the meaning? It's almost a perfect match. That's the magic right there.
Okay, so we figured out how to find relevant information. Now, what if we could give that superpower to a large language model? That brings us to our next pattern, Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG. This is how you build those amazing chatbots that can use your own private documents as their brain.
And the RAG pipeline? It builds directly on what we just did. First, you get your knowledge base ready, your company docs, your PDFs, whatever, and you turn it all into vectors. Then when a user asks a question, you use that semantic search we just talked about to pull out the most relevant pieces of text. Finally, you hand that context and the question over to an LLM and say, hey, answer this question using only these facts. And what you get is a chatbot that gives you accurate, factual answers from your data. The user asks about price, the system semantically finds the right sentence in your documents, and the LLM creates a perfect answer. It's not guessing or hallucinating anymore, it's using a source of truth. This is how you stop the model from just making stuff up. But searching by meaning alone is only half the battle. What if you need more control? What if you want to mix that conceptual search with some good old-fashioned hard and fast filters? Well, that's exactly what hybrid search lets you do. The idea here is actually really simple, but it's incredibly powerful. When you store your vectors, the things that capture the meaning, you also store structured metadata right alongside them. Things like a product category, a date, a price, or whether something's in stock. This metadata gives you a way to slice and dice your search results with absolute precision.
So for example, you could search for a fuzzy concept like headphones with good audio quality. That's the semantic part. But then you can add filters to only show items in the electronics category that cost less than $100 and are currently in stock. You really get the best of both worlds, the conceptual understanding of vector search and the rock-solid precision of a traditional database filter.
Okay, so building these patterns is one thing, but making them fast, reliable, and cost-effective for the real world, that's a whole other ballgame. Let's switch gears and talk about some absolutely essential best practices for taking your app from a fun prototype to a real production system. First up, and this one is huge, batching.
Please, whatever you do, don't insert your vectors one by one. Each of those is a separate network request, and it is painfully slow. Instead, you've got to group them, hundreds or even thousands, into a single operation. This one tiny change can make your data ingestion pipeline ridiculously faster. Next up, caching. Look, generating embeddings costs time and money, usually because you're hitting an API. So don't do it over and over for the same piece of text. It's just wasteful. Use a simple cache. If you've seen that text before, just grab the vector you already made. It's way cheaper and a whole lot faster.
So let's just quickly recap that production checklist. 1. Batch your operations for insane speed. 2. Cache those embeddings to save time and money. 3. Always build in retries to handle network glitches. They will happen. And 4. Use namespaces to keep your data organized, like keeping data for different users or products separate within the same database.
So which tools should you actually go with? Here's a quick little breakdown. If you want something that's fully managed, you don't have to think about it, it just works and scales, look at Pinecone. If you're just messing around on your laptop, ChromaDB is amazing and super easy to use with Python. And if you need to host it yourself for maximum control, Qdrant is a fantastic option. The right tool really just depends on your needs and where you are in your project.
Whew, we have covered a lot of ground. But you know, knowledge is only useful if you actually apply it. So let's wrap this all up with a clear, actionable plan for what you can build like this week. So here it is, your mission, should you choose to accept it. First, build a basic semantic search over a small set of documents you care about. When you get that working, build a RAG chatbot on top of it. And finally, add some metadata to your vectors and implement a hybrid search with filtering. If you follow these steps, you won't just understand the theory, you'll have a real working application to show for it. You see, all of these patterns, they're really just about unlocking the value that's already sitting there hidden inside your data. It's about giving you the power to have a conversation with your documents. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. You have the tools now. Your data has the answers. The only question left is, what are you going to ask it first? So, you've done it. You've built your first vector search implementation. And that initial spark of magic, that wow moment, is maybe starting to fade a little bit. Now you're hitting the real-world headaches. If that sounds like you, trust me, you are in the perfect place. We're about to walk through all those common frustrations and give you a real, practical playbook to get them solved. And this, right here, is the most important thing to remember. You are not alone. Every single person who gets serious about vector search runs into these exact same walls. It's not a sign you did something wrong. It's actually a sign you're past the easy stuff and you're onto building something real. So let's put a name to these problems. You know, do any of these sound familiar? The search results just aren't hitting the mark. Your queries feel like they're taking forever to come back. That monthly bill from your provider is starting to make your eyes water. Or maybe your data is always just a little bit out of date. These are the classic signs, and we're going to figure out how to fix them.
Let's kick things off with what is, for my money, the most frustrating problem of all: relevance. I mean, the whole reason you got into semantic search was to get results that understand meaning, right? Not just keywords. But then, sometimes the results you get back feel like they totally missed the point of what the user was asking.
Okay, let's take a super simple, totally reasonable query. A developer's looking for best practices for API authentication. Seems pretty straightforward. What could go wrong? Well,
and here we go. This is what makes you want to pull your hair out. The search comes back with stuff that's technically related. You get a general article on API design, something about HTTP, even a basic what is an API primer. But the one document they actually asked for, the one about authentication, it's completely missing. So what is happening here? A lot of the time, this is the main culprit. It's a model mismatch. We all tend to start with a general purpose model, something like MiniLM, because it's easy and it works on everything. But it was trained on, the entire internet. A domain-specific model, one that's been fine-tuned on actual search tasks, is just so much better at picking up on user intent. It really is the difference between using a butter knife and a surgeon's scalpel for a precise job. All right, let's pivot to the next big headache. And this is kind of the good problem to have, but it's still a problem: speed and cost. This happens when your app actually gets popular. Suddenly, that demo that was so snappy is starting to feel sluggish, and the costs, well, they're starting to get expensive. Now, when we think about what's making our search slow, we usually point the finger right at the vector database. But have a look at this. The search itself is a big chunk of the time, for sure, but it's not the whole story.
You've got the time it takes to create the embedding for the query, and then you have this enrichment time. That's when you go fetch the full text of the documents after you get the IDs back. You've got to figure out where your bottleneck really is.
And of course, there's the money. Infrastructure costs money, like your Pinecone pod. But the real kicker, the one that can sneak up on you, is the embedding API. Every single document you index, every query a user makes, it costs you tokens. And when you start to scale up, that can add up fast.
Okay, enough complaining about the problems. Let's get into the good stuff, the fixes. I want you to think of this next part as your personal playbook. These are real, practical strategies you can use to boost your search quality, crush that latency, and get your costs back under control.
For that pesky relevance problem, your secret weapon is hybrid search. It really is the best of both worlds. You run your fancy semantic search, but at the exact same time, you run a good old-fashioned keyword search. Then you just mix the results together. This way, you get the amazing conceptual understanding from vectors, but you also make sure you don't miss crucial keywords like authentication that the user explicitly typed.
Now, what about speed? This one is a huge win. Just look at the difference here. Making a network call to an API for your embeddings can easily take 200 milliseconds. But if you run a model locally on your own machine, you can get that down to 20 milliseconds. That's a 10 times improvement right off the bat just by cutting out the network trip.
And to bring those costs down, you just got to be smart. First, you don't have to use that top-of-the-line expensive model for everything. Use it for the live user query where quality is critical, but use a cheaper local model to index all your documents in bulk. Second, stop storing the entire text of your documents in your vector database. That's expensive. Just store an ID and then pull the full text from cheap storage like S3 only when you need to show it to the user.
So knowing what to do is half the battle, but now you actually have to, do it. So let's wrap this all up with a super simple 3-step action plan that you can literally start working on this week to see a real improvement.
Here it is, nice and simple. First, just pick your biggest problem. Is it relevance, speed, or your budget? Don't try to fix everything at once. Second, just implement one thing we talked about. Pick the one that's going to give you the biggest win for the least effort. And third, and this is so important, you have to set up monitoring. You need to measure before you make the change and after so you can actually prove that it worked. And what does success even look like? It's not just a gut feeling. It's a number on a dashboard. It's seeing a 10% bump in search quality, or chopping your query time in half, or seeing that monthly bill go down by 30%. You have to define what you want to improve, make the change, and then measure it. Let's leave it on this note. Hitting these problems isn't a sign of failure. It's just part of the journey. It's inevitable. But the solutions to every single one of these problems are out there, and they are absolutely learnable. Now you've got the playbook, so the only question left is, which problem are you going to solve first?
Let's be real, trying to build an AI application right now feels a bit like trying to build a spaceship with a manual written in a dozen different languages. But today, we're going to change that. We're giving you the complete blueprint, the databases, the models, the frameworks, and we're going to show you exactly how to snap them together to build something amazing. Let's dive in.
Okay, so you've got that killer idea. The one that keeps you up at night. You've even got the coding chops to make it happen. But then you hit a wall, and you're faced with one huge, paralyzing question.
And that question is, where do you even begin? The whole AI tool ecosystem has just exploded. It's a total mess of logos and names and technologies. So what we're going to do today is simple. We're going to cut right through all that noise and draw you a clear map.
All right, first up, we've got to tackle the AI builder's dilemma. We're starting with the absolute foundation of your entire project, your database. And not just any database, a vector database. This is what lets you search by meaning and context, not just simple keywords. Honestly, this is your first big choice, and it really does set the tone for everything that follows. So your choice here really comes down to one of 3 paths. First, you've got managed services. Think of these as the done-for-you option. They're incredibly fast, built for production, but yeah, they'll cost you. Second, you can go the self-hosted route. This gives you absolute control, which is great, but now you're the one who has to fix it when it breaks. And finally, for just getting your hands dirty, you've got embedded databases. These are perfect for prototyping, they run right on your laptop, and they're free. It all comes down to what you value most: speed, control, or just getting started.
Okay, so once we've picked our database, our foundation is set. Now, it's time to add the brains of the operation, the AI models, and the glue that's going to hold everything together. Let's talk about the models and frameworks that are going to bring your app to life. Next up, your embedding model. Now, this is a crucial piece. Think of it like a universal translator. It takes all your stuff, your text, your images, and turns it into numbers so the database can actually understand it. And you've got a classic choice to make here. You can use a powerful API like OpenAI's for the absolute best quality, but you pay for every single use. Or you can run open source models on your own machine. They're free, they keep your data completely private, but they might not have that same top-tier performance. So, what's it going to be? Quality or cost and privacy?
And now, for the glue. How do we connect our model and our database? Well, the most popular kit on the block is LangChain. It's like a Swiss Army knife for building AI apps really fast. Now, if you're doing a lot of question and answer stuff with documents, you might want to look at Llama Index. It's built specifically for that. But, and here's a little pro tip, for the best possible performance in a real production app, a lot of the pros just skip the frameworks entirely and use the database's own tools. So your choice is speed, a specific tool for the job, or just raw, unadulterated power.
All right, that's enough theory. Let's make this real. I'm about to walk you through 4 specific, battle-tested tech stacks. These are actual blueprints you can just take, copy, and start using for your own projects today. First up, Blueprint 1, the Rapid Prototyping Stack. I call this the Weekend Warrior. You've got an idea on a Friday, and you want to have something to show for it by Monday. This is it. You run everything locally on your own machine. The best part? It costs you exactly $0. And you can get from zero to actual working results in about an hour. Seriously. Okay, now let's get serious. Blueprint 2 is for building a real production-level software as a service product. This is the stack for when you have paying customers who expect things to just work. You use a managed database for reliability, a top-tier model like OpenAI for quality, and you build it for performance. This is the setup that's built to grow with your business.
What if you're working in a big company? You know, a place with super strict rules about data privacy, or where you need to optimize costs because you're working at a massive scale. Well, that's where you pull out Blueprint 3, the self-hosted enterprise. Here, you're running everything on your own servers. Your data never leaves your control. It's more work, for sure, but it gives you maximum control and security.
And finally, my personal favorite, Blueprint 4, the hybrid approach. This is where you get really clever. You mix and match. Maybe you use a managed database because it's easy, but you get smart about your models. You could use a cheaper, local model to process all your documents, but use the expensive, high-quality OpenAI model only when a user asks a question. It's a fantastic way to balance convenience, power, and cost. Look, all this information is great, but it's pretty useless if you don't do something with it. We've gone through the tools, we've looked at the blueprints, now it's time for you to actually build. So here's a dead simple action plan you can follow this week.
It really is this simple. Step 1, just pick a stack. Don't agonize over it. If you're not sure, just grab that first prototyping blueprint. Step 2, get your environment set up. Install the tools, throw in some sample data. Step 3, and this is the most important one, build one complete feature. Just one, like a search bar that actually returns results. That's it. That's how you get the ball rolling.
So how do you know you've done a good job? Here's your goal. Success isn't just about getting a result back. It's about getting it back fast. You want to aim for a search response time under 500 milliseconds. That's less than half a second. That's the magic number where an app stops feeling like a demo and starts feeling snappy, professional, real. It's a goal that'll impress anyone you show your work to.
So there you have it. We've given you the map, we've given you the tools, we've given you the blueprints, and a concrete plan of action. You literally have the complete toolkit to go out and build incredible AI applications. So the only question left, and it's the most exciting one of all, is what are you going to build with it?
Hey everyone, welcome. So today, we're going to tackle something that, let's be honest, trips up pretty much all of us at some point. Setting up a really solid development environment, specifically for vector database apps. The whole point is to get you building cool stuff, not just, debugging your setup for hours on end.
All right, let's just jump right in. The source material for this makes a pretty bold promise, and I love it. It says we can go from zero to productive in 30 minutes. And you know what? That's exactly what we're aiming for here. We've all been there, right? You've got this amazing idea for a new AI app, you're all fired up, ready to code, and then, bam, you hit the setup wall.
It's complicated, it's intimidating, and honestly, it's just frustrating. That whole creative spark just dies. So today we're going to build a solid foundation using two of the heavy hitters in this space. We're talking about OpenAI, which is just incredible for turning our ideas and text into numbers, or embeddings, and Pinecone, which is built from the ground up to store and search through those numbers at lightning speed. It's a killer combination.
So, we're calling this part avoiding the setup maze, because, that's exactly what it feels like, doesn't it? You're lost in this confusing labyrinth of docs and cryptic error messages. What we're going to do right now is shine a light on all those common traps that can snag a great idea before it even gets off the ground.
And I bet as you look at this list, you're nodding your head, because these headaches are so familiar. First up, dependency conflicts. Where installing one thing completely breaks another. Ugh. Then there's the big one, insecurely managing API keys, like just pasting them right into your code. That's a huge, huge no-no. And of course, messy project structures and that dreaded environment drift. The classic, well, it works on my machine problem. Yeah, today we're putting an end to all of that.
So what's the secret? How do we fix this? Well, it's not a secret, it's a blueprint. A super clear, reliable path to get everything up and running. We're breaking it down into just 4 steps. It's simple, it's structured, and best of all, it actually works.
Okay, here's the game plan, high level. First up, we install our dependencies, get all the essential tools we need. Second, we'll grab our API keys, and this is key, make sure we're handling them securely. Third, we'll configure our environment so all these pieces can talk to each other. And finally, my favorite part, we'll verify the whole setup to make sure everything works like a charm.
All right, let's dig into step 1. Now, before we install a single thing, we're going to create a virtual environment. Seriously, do not skip this part. It's absolutely crucial, because it puts our project in its own little sandbox, which stops those nasty dependency conflicts we just talked about. Once that's activated, it's literally one command. We're going to pip install everything we need: the Pinecone client, the OpenAI library, sentence transformers, and this handy little tool called python.n for our secrets. Boom, all the core tools, one line.
Okay, step 2, API keys. You're going to need 2 of them. Over on the Pinecone side, you can just sign up and grab one from their free tier, which is awesome. Just remember to also jot down your environment name. Then, for OpenAI, you'll head to their platform, pop in a payment method, it's pay as you go, and create a new secret key. Pretty straightforward.
Now, this next part is maybe the most important step for security. What do you do with those keys? You create a simple little text file, and you have to name it .env. That's .env. Inside, you just paste your keys in, just like you see here. This little file is what keeps your secret keys out of your actual code. And listen, I'm going to say this again because it's that important. Never, ever, ever commit this file to GitHub or any version control. It stays on your computer and your computer only.
Okay, we've done the prep work, we've laid the foundation. Now it's time for the payoff, confirming that our connection actually works. This is that "it works" moment we've been waiting for.
And here's how we're going to do it. We'll whip up a quick little Python script. You can call it testup.py or whatever you want. All it does is import the libraries we installed, use that special package to load our secret keys from the .env file, and then try to connect to both Pinecone and OpenAI. Super simple, super direct. It either works or it doesn't.
And when you run that script, this is the magic you're looking for, the sweet, sweet sight of success. Checkmark for Pinecone, checkmark for OpenAI, and look at that, confirmation that we actually generated an embedding. That's just a fancy word for the list of numbers that represents our text. When you see this, you can do a little happy dance, because it means your keys are right, your packages are working, and your environment is officially good to go. You're ready to build.
Okay, awesome. So we have a working script. That's fantastic. But we're not just here to build one-off scripts, right? Let's level up. Let's talk about how to go from this simple test to building a real, scalable, professional-grade application.
Trust me on this one, a clean project structure is going to be your best friend. Just look at this layout. Everything has a logical place to live. You've got your virtual environment folder, your secret.env file, a config.py file whose only job is to load those secrets, and then you separate your logic. One file for your vector database stuff, another for your actual search functions, your data lives in a data folder, your tests in a tests folder. This isn't just about being tidy. It's what makes your code easy to maintain, easy to debug, and easy for someone else or future you to understand.
And to make that nice structure work with version control, you absolutely need a good .gitignore file. This is just a simple file that tells Git, hey, Ignore these files and folders. The non-negotiables, your VNV folder, that super secret .env file, and all those clunky Python cache files. This keeps your project repository clean, and more importantly, it keeps it secure.
And once you get comfortable with this setup, a whole new world of more advanced stuff opens up. You could start using Docker to package your entire environment so it runs exactly the same everywhere, or maybe you need to work offline. You can swap in a local vector DB like ChromaDB, and for working with a team, creating a requirements.txt file is the gold standard for making sure everyone's on the exact same page with their packages.
Whew, okay, that was a fair bit of info, I know. But information is useless without action, right? So now it's time to put this into practice. Let's shift gears from just watching this to actually building something.
So here is your action plan. It's super clear. Your mission for today, go through those 4 setup steps we covered. Don't stop until you run that test script and see those beautiful success messages. Then, for the rest of the week, give yourself a challenge. Build out one simple complete feature, anything. And then push that clean, well-structured project up to your GitHub.
And that's pretty much it. That's the whole shebang. You've got the blueprint, you have the tools, and now you have a development environment that's primed and ready to go. So really, there's only one question left to ask. Now that you're all set up, what are you going to build first?
Hey everyone, let's talk about something that can absolutely kill even the most amazing AI application: speed. If you've ever built something incredible, only to watch it lag and frustrate people, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Today we're going to dive into some powerful, practical ways to tear down those performance walls and make your applications fly.
Now, our source material makes this really bold promise: techniques to make your vector database 10x faster. Think about that for a second. That's not just a little tweak, right? A 10x improvement is a total game changer for how your users feel and how much your app can handle. So let's break down exactly how to get there.
So, does this sound familiar? You've built this amazing AI app, you're so proud of it, but when it's go time, it just hesitates. That little lag, that spinning wheel, it's more than just annoying, isn't it? It can undermine all your hard work. This performance wall is a super common problem, but it's one we can definitely break through.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to figure out what's actually causing the slowdown. Then we'll hit the easy wins, the low-hanging fruit, with smarter queries and embeddings. After that, we'll get into the serious stuff and optimize the database core itself, get it ready for prime-time traffic, and finally, we'll wrap it all up with a simple action plan for you to get started.
First up, the race against latency. Before we can even think about speeding things up, we have to put on our detective hats. We've got to find the culprit, you know? You can't fix a problem if you don't know what it is.
So, who are the usual suspects here? Well, these performance killers, they often hide in plain sight. It could be that your queries are just taking forever to come back, or maybe generating embeddings is taking an eternity. It could even be a clunky index that's working way too hard, or your memory use is just going through the roof. Any one of these can just grind your app to a halt.
Okay, enough with the problems. Let's get to the solutions. This first section is all about smarter queries and embeddings. I want you to think of these as the big red levers you can pull for an instant speed boost. Seriously.
So the first big mental shift is this: stop doing things one at a time. Sequential queries? It's like having one single checkout line at a packed grocery store. It's just painful. The smart way, the fast way, you open up more lanes. Parallel queries let you handle a bunch of requests all at once, and it just slashes those wait times.
And this is literally how you do it in the code. You see this thread pool executor thing? Just think of it as hiring a team of cashiers instead of just one. Your code becomes the manager, handing out tasks to all the cashiers at the same time. It looks simple, but the performance jump is just massive.
All right, next up, let's take that same idea. Don't do it one by one and apply it to generating embeddings. Making a separate API call for every single piece of text, that's just crazy inefficient. It's like sending one delivery truck for one package, then another truck for the next package, and so on for 100 packages. No way. The fast way is batching. You put all 100 packages on one truck and make one single trip. It's just common sense, right?
And here's the code that pulls it off. See that batch size? You're basically just telling the code, hey, group these texts into batches of 100 before you send them off. Instead of 100 separate requests, you make one. This one little change can seriously make your embedding process up to 10 times faster. 10 times!
Okay, so we've sorted out our queries and embeddings. Now it's time to go deeper. right into the engine room of the vector database itself. We're talking about efficient indexing and data. This is where we start really fine-tuning things for maximum performance.
All right, this next technique is a really cool one. It's called quantization. The best way to think about it is like compressing a giant photo into a smaller JPEG. The file gets way smaller, but you can barely tell the difference in quality. Quantization does exactly that for your vectors. It shrinks them down, which can cut your memory usage by something like 4x, with almost no hit to your accuracy. It's kind of magic.
And you know what the best part is? Look how easy this is. In a database like Qdrant, it can be just a single line in your config. You're just telling it, hey, use these smaller, more efficient numbers instead of the big, chunky ones. That's it. One line of code for a 4x memory saving? I mean, that's an incredible deal.
Okay, another pro tip, put your vector index on a diet. Seriously, don't load it up with tons of heavy data like the full text of documents. That just slows it down. Your vector database only needs two things to do its job: the vector itself and a simple ID to go with it. Keep all the other heavy stuff somewhere else, somewhere cheaper, and only go get it when you actually need it. This keeps your index super lean and super fast.
So, our app is fast for one person. Awesome. But what happens when thousands of people start using it at once? That's what this next section is all about. Scaling for production. We're getting ready for prime time.
One of the most powerful ways to scale is using what's called a read replica. Check out this line of code here. Just by setting replicas equals 3, you can literally triple your capacity to handle searches. What it does is create identical copies of your index, so when all those search requests start flooding in, they get spread out across the copies. It's like opening more toll booths on a busy highway. No more traffic jams.
But of course, how do we know any of this is actually working? We can't just guess. You have to measure. This little function right here, benchmark optimization, is going to be your new best friend. It just runs your search over and over, times it, and tells you the average speed. You have to, absolutely have to, benchmark before and after you make a change. Otherwise, you're just flying blind.
So let's look at the results. Here's a pretty typical before picture. An average search time of about 482 milliseconds. Now that might not sound like a lot, but trust me, your users feel that delay. This is our starting point.
And now, here's the after. By putting all these techniques into practice, that latency just plummets all the way down to 45 milliseconds. That's not a 10% improvement, that is a 10 times improvement. It completely changes the feel of the app from sluggish to, well, instant. This is what we're aiming for, and it is totally achievable.
Whew, okay, we've gone through a lot, so let's bring it all together in this final section, your first optimization. It's time to stop talking and start doing.
The source material lays out a super simple 3-step plan. Step 1, profile. Find out what's actually slow. Don't guess, use data. Step 2, apply. Pick just one of the things we talked about and implement it. And step 3, measure. Run your benchmark and see what happened. That's the loop. Profile, apply, measure. Simple.
So what does a win actually look like? It's really important to remember this. It's not just about speed. Success is getting that big performance boost without messing up your accuracy. I mean, a super fast search that gives you garbage results is useless, right? The goal is to be fast and smart.
And that's pretty much a wrap. We've looked at the common problems, we've walked through the fixes, and we've seen just how dramatic the results can be. The only thing left to do is for you to try it. So I'll leave you with this question. When you look at your own app, which bottleneck are you going to tackle first?
You know that feeling, right? That little pit in your stomach when you realize the app that runs perfectly on your laptop, well, it might just completely fall apart in the real world. So today, we're going to bridge that gap. We're taking your code from the cozy comfort of your local machine and launching it into the wild, unpredictable world of production.
See, on your own machine, everything's perfect. You're the only user, the network is flawless. You're in total control. But production? That's a whole different beast. We're talking thousands of users hitting your app at once. The network is, well, it's a mess, full of latency, dropped packets, you name it. It's not just a gap, it's a canyon we have to cross. So, the big question is, how do we get across safely?
All right, first things first. Before we even dream of deploying, we've got to get our app in shape. Think of this next part as your pre-flight checklist before going live. Okay, these 3 things, they are absolutely non-negotiable. Number 1, secure your keys. Seriously, hard-coding API keys is just asking for trouble. A total recipe for disaster. Number 2,
Expect failures. Your code is going to break, that's a guarantee. The trick is building it to recover gracefully. And finally, number 3, add a dashboard. You've got to have eyes on your app because you can't fix what you can't see.
So let's talk about securing those keys. It's super simple, but so important. Instead of just typing your API key right into your code, which is a huge no-no, you use something called an environment variable. You set the key in your production environment, and then your code just pulls it in safely using os.getEnvironment. The best part? Your secret keys never ever end up in your Git history where anyone could find them. It's such a simple habit to get into, but it is absolutely critical.
Now for my favorite part, building for failure. This little @retry decorator you see here, this thing is your secret weapon against all those random temporary glitches. It uses a really clever strategy called exponential backoff. So if a connection fails, it doesn't just try again immediately. Nope, it waits a second. Fails again, it waits 2 seconds. Then 4, then 8. It gives the other service a chance to breathe and recover, instead of you just hammering it over and over again. It's brilliant.
Okay, so your app is prepped, it's resilient, it's ready to go. Now for the fun part. How do we actually get this thing online? There are basically 3 main roads you can go down, and each one has its own pros and cons.
I like to think of it like choosing how you're going to get around town. Serverless? That's your zippy little scooter. It's super fast, super easy to just hop on and go. Perfect for quick trips. Docker is like your trusty car. It's flexible, it's reliable, it'll get you pretty much anywhere you need to go. And then you've got Kubernetes. That's the freight train. It's unbelievably powerful and can haul a massive load, but, it takes a bit more work to get it rolling.
Let's start with serverless. With a platform like Vercel, you literally just write a tiny little config file like this. You just tell it how to build your project and which route to use. And that's it. You hit deploy and you are live. It is, without a doubt, the fastest way to get your code from your machine to a public URL that people can actually use.
Okay, next up, Docker. A Docker file is basically a recipe. It tells Docker exactly how to build a neat little package of your app, a container. And the magic of this container is that it runs exactly the same, no matter where you put it. Your laptop, a server in the cloud, wherever. It finally, once and for all, solves that classic, infuriating problem of, but it works on my machine.
And finally, the big one, Kubernetes. Now, I know it can look a little intimidating, but at its heart, it's all about one thing, reliability at scale. See this one line here, replicas 3? That's you telling Kubernetes, hey, I always want 3 copies of my app running no matter what. So if one of them crashes or an entire server goes down, no big deal. The other 2 are still chugging along, handling all the requests. It's like an automatic built-in safety net for your application.
All right, you did it. You're live. People are using your app. It's a success. And then it gets really successful. The floodgates open. What on earth do you do when you go viral and the traffic just explodes? No, really, think about it. Thousands of users are hitting your site every single second. Your database is probably on fire. Your servers are melting. And all your brand new users, they're just seeing error pages. So what's the weak link? What breaks first? Yep, it's that one lonely server. It just gets completely crushed under the weight of all those requests, and it goes down, taking your entire application with it.
So the solution is actually pretty simple in concept. You just add more checkout lanes. Instead of one server trying to help everybody, you spin up a bunch of identical servers. Then you put a load balancer in front of them to act like a traffic cop, directing each new user to the next open lane. The workload gets spread out and everything runs way, way smoother.
But here's the thing. You do not want to be the person waking up at 3 a.m. to manually add more servers. That's where auto-scaling comes in. You just give the system a simple rule, just like this one. It basically says, hey, if the average CPU load across all my servers climbs past 70%, just go ahead and add another server for me. It's like a thermostat for your traffic, automatically kicking in to keep things comfortable.
Okay, so surviving those big traffic spikes is one thing, but staying live for the long haul, that's a different game. It's all about building a service that's not just reliable, but also efficient, and it doesn't cost a fortune to run. So let's talk about a few pro tips for the long game.
First up is a health check. Think of it like a routine doctor's visit for your app. It's just a special URL, like /health, that your system pings every few seconds. If it gets a good response, great, the app is healthy. But if it reports back sick, maybe it can't connect to the database or something, the system automatically takes that sick server out of the mix and replaces it with a healthy one. It's all automatic.
Next, you need rate limiting.
This is basically the bouncer for your API's nightclub. It stops any single user from totally hogging all the resources. You just set a cap, like, hey, nobody gets more than 100 requests per minute. This keeps things fair for everyone and protects you from all sorts of stuff, like runaway scripts or even malicious attacks.
Oh man, caching. This is an absolute game changer for both speed and your wallet. So look at the before state. Every single user request is pounding on your expensive database. Not good. But after, we slip a super fast, super cheap little memory store, a cache, right in front. Now, when someone makes a common request, we just serve it instantly from the cache. The database never even knows it happened. It's way faster for your users and way, way cheaper for you. A total win-win.
And here's another clever little trick: request batching. Just think of it like carpooling for your API calls. Instead of sending, say, 10 separate calls to your database one after another, you just wait a fraction of a second, bundle them all up, and send them together in one trip. It's so much more efficient, it cuts down on costs, and it reduces the overall traffic on your system.
Whew. Okay, we've covered a ton of ground, from prepping your code all the way to scaling it across the globe. So the big question is, what do you do right now? Here's your action plan for your first week.
First, you need to be watching these vital signs like a hawk. P95 latency is a huge one. Forget the average user experience for a second. This metric tells you about the experience of your unluckiest 5% of users. If that number starts to creep up, it means a chunk of your users are having a really, really bad time. And of course, you need alerts set up for your error rate and for any time you fail to connect to your database or other APIs.
So here's your mission for this week, should you choose to accept it. Step 1. Get your app deployed to a staging environment. Think of it as a private dress rehearsal. Step 2. Get those health checks and monitoring dashboards we talked about in place. And finally, step 3. Try to break it. Seriously. Hit it with a load test, see how much you can handle before it falls over. This is how you find the weak spots and build the confidence you need to really launch this thing.
And that's the journey. We've gone from a lonely little app on your laptop all the way to a global, scalable service that's ready for anything. All the tools, all the techniques, they're right here, ready for you to use. So the only real question left is your code ready for the world?
Have you ever just stared at your screen wondering why the most powerful AI on the planet can't answer a simple question about your own business? Well, today, we're going to fix that. We are going to connect these amazing AIs to the data that actually matters the most, yours.
It's a really weird situation, isn't it? I mean, you can ask a large language model to break down quantum physics, and it'll spit out a brilliant explanation. But then you ask it, hey, what was our revenue last quarter? And nothing. Crickets. That's the exact frustrating gap we're going to close today.
So here's the deal. The reason this happens is actually pretty simple. An LLM's entire world, its whole brain, is basically the public internet. It's been trained on trillions, and I mean trillions of words, from websites, books, articles, everything that's out there. But your internal stuff, your company's documents, your customer data, all those conversations on Slack, your unique knowledge base, to the AI, it's all in a total blind spot. It's completely invisible. So how do we give this AI some vision? How do we let it see our stuff? Well, the answer is this really powerful, but honestly super elegant technique that acts like a bridge between the AI's massive general intelligence and your specific knowledge. And it's called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or as you'll hear everyone call it, RAG.
The best way to think about RAG is like an open book test for the AI, right? So instead of forcing it to try and remember something from its huge but kind of generic memory, we literally give it the textbook, which is your data. And we just tell it, hey, find the answer in here. It's that simple. And that way, the answers you get are based on your facts, not just its best guess.
So let's break down how this works in practice. First, you ask a question. Then the system instantly searches across all your documents to find the most relevant little snippets of text. It bundles all that good context together with your original question, and then it hands the whole package over to the LLM. And what you get back is a fact-based, grounded, and way more accurate answer.
And you know what the best part is? This whole powerful process, it can be set up with just a few lines of code. I mean, look at this. This isn't some pie-in-the-sky future technology. This is something you can build, like, today. This one line of code creates that entire chain, all the way from grabbing the data to generating the final answer. It's amazing.
Okay, but RAG is really just the first tool in a much bigger toolbox. Once you've made that connection to your data, you can start to build some truly sophisticated AI applications that go way beyond just simple question and answer. Let's see how this all builds on itself.
We're talking about AI that can do more than just talk. We're talking about AI agents that can actually take action, chatbots that remember who you are and what you've talked about, and systems that can save you a ton of time and money. Seriously, this is where AI starts to feel like actual magic.
So what's really the difference between a normal LLM and what we're calling an AI agent? Well, it all comes down to action. A simple LLM, it's a talker. An agent is a doer. You can give it tools, like the ability to actively search your database to find information all on its own.
And check this out. This shows just how simple it is to give your AI new abilities. With just a couple lines of code here, we've created a new tool called Search Docs. And just like that, the AI can now search all your internal documents whenever it needs to. It's literally like giving it a new superpower.
Now here's a really smart trick to make your AI faster and way more efficient: semantic caching. Basically, if two people ask a really similar question, instead of making the AI do all the work twice and you paying for the compute power twice, we can just reuse the first answer. This saves you real money on API calls, and for your users, it just makes your whole application feel snappy and way more responsive.
Okay, let's put these pieces together and look at a real-world example. How do we build a chatbot that feels genuinely intelligent? You know, one that doesn't have the memory of a goldfish.
The secret sauce here really has two main ingredients. First, you use RAG to pull in that relevant context from your knowledge base, just like we've been talking about. But then, and this is key, you also give it a memory of the last few things you've talked about. Those two things together create a truly context-aware experience.
And right here, this is the secret to a chatbot that doesn't have that goldfish memory problem. This simple bit of code tells the AI to remember the last 3 turns of the conversation. It's such a small change, but for the user, it's what makes the conversation feel so much more natural and intelligent. It's a game changer.
All right, so we've covered the concepts, we've even seen some code. Now for the most important part, turning all this knowledge into action. This isn't just theory, okay? This is a practical blueprint. Let's talk about what you can actually do this week to get started.
Here it is, your project plan. Step 1, build a basic RAG system using your own data. Step 2, layer in that conversation history to turn it into a chatbot. Step 3, and this one is critical, test it. Test it with at least 50 real questions that your users might actually ask. And finally, step 4, measure its accuracy against a standard LLM. You have to see the difference for yourself.
So what are we shooting for? What's the goal here? You're aiming for a system that can answer questions about your data with over 90% accuracy. That's the bar. That's when you know you've built something truly, truly useful.
So, the tools are here, the path is clear. The only question left is, what are you going to build? What is that unique knowledge that you are going to unlock first? The possibilities really are endless.
All right, let's get right into it. So you've been hitting the books, right? You've probably spent weeks, maybe even months, learning all the theory behind vector databases. You get embeddings, you get semantic search, you get RAG, but now what? Now comes the big question. How do you actually turn all that knowledge into something real? You know, something you can show off? Well, that's exactly what we're going to tackle today, moving past the theory and into building actual portfolio-worthy projects.
And this really gets to the heart of it. We're talking about 4 complete project blueprints. This isn't going to be another theory session, I promise. This is about giving you actionable plans to get you building something that really demonstrates what you can do, and fast.
You know that feeling, right? It's the classic tutorial trap. You follow along with all the examples, you nod your head, you think, yeah, I get this. But then you're staring at a blank editor, and it's like, where do I even begin? Our whole goal here is to help you break right out of that cycle for good.
We call this the portfolio problem. It's that huge gap between knowing how something works in your head and having a link you can send someone that says, look what I built. That's the bridge we're going to cross. We want to help you build something that speaks for you, something that proves you know your stuff.
So, what's the solution? We've got 4 incredible project blueprints lined up. And these are not just vague ideas, okay? They're structured paths you can actually follow. And they range from something you could totally knock out in a weekend to a much bigger production-grade system. Let's check them out.
Okay, so here's the high-level view. You've got 4 options. First, a documentation Q&A system. That's a really quick win. Then, a customer support chatbot, which is perfect for showing business value. Third, a code search tool, which is great for a technical audience, and finally, a product recommendation system for when you want to tackle scale and complexity. You can pretty much see right away which one might be the best fit for you.
Let's compare those first two for a second. The documentation Q&A is the perfect place to start. It's an internal tool, right? It's a quick win that solves a real pain point for any dev team. The customer support chatbot, though, well, that's a whole different beast. It's customer-facing, it's all about impacting business metrics, so it's naturally a bit more complex.
And when we talk about business value, this is what we mean. For a chatbot like that, a huge success metric is aiming to handle over 70% of customer questions automatically, without a human ever getting involved. Now that's a number you can put on your resume. That's a real, quantifiable result.
Now, for the bigger projects, the Code Search Engine. I mean, what a fantastic tool for developers, right? It's built for a super technical audience, helping them dig through massive code bases. But then you contrast that with the Product Recommendation Engine. That's for e-commerce, built for regular users, and has to scale to maybe millions of products. It just goes to show you how versatile this tech really is.
Okay, to make sure this all feels doable and not, totally intimidating, let's really zoom in on that first project, the documentation Q&A system. We're going to break it down piece by piece, just to show you how simple it can be to get a first version up and running.
Seriously, look at this. You can get a minimum viable product, an MVP, done in just 3 steps. 1. You index your documents. That just means you load them, chunk them up, and embed them. 2. You build a Q&A endpoint that feeds the context to an LLM to get an answer. And 3. You log everything for analytics. And don't skip that last step. It's so important because it's how you learn and get better over time. That's it. That's all you need to get started.
And here's where it gets really fun, because that MVP is just the starting line. From there, you can add all sorts of cool features. Like, what about a simple thumbs up, thumbs down button for user feedback? Or automatically re-indexing whenever the docs change? Or even adding multi-language support? You see how this simple weekend project can quickly grow into a seriously impressive, powerful tool?
Okay, so you've built the thing. That's amazing. But listen, this part is absolutely crucial. Building it is only half the battle. If you can't talk about it and present it in a compelling way, it's just not going to have the impact it deserves. So let's talk about showcasing your work.
Think of your GitHub README as the front door to your project. It's got to be good. And this template gives you the perfect structure. You start with the problem you're trying to solve. Then, clearly state your solution. List your tech stack. And this one's key. Quantify your results. Show the data. And finally, please, include a link to a live demo or a quick video of it in action.
And then, when you're in an interview or just talking about it, you need to tell a story. This 5-step structure is perfect. Start with a problem, the user's pain point. Then explain your approach, why a vector database was the right tool for the job. Walk through a few key implementation details. Share those awesome quantifiable results again. And then, and this is huge, talk about what you learned. It shows you can reflect and grow.
All right, we've talked about the what and the how. Now it's time to get down to business. This is your mission, should you choose to accept it. We're going to lay out a crystal clear action plan to get you from 0 to a finished project in 1 month. Here it is, your 1-month plan. Super simple. Step 1, just choose one of the 4 projects we talked about. Step 2, spend the first week, just 1 week, building the MVP. Step 3, deploy it, get it out there. Step 4, get feedback from just 1 or 2 users. And finally, Step 5, iterate, make it better. This is exactly how real-world software gets built. And what's the end goal of all this? This right here, your portfolio goal. To have one solid, production-grade project that shows you can take an idea from the very beginning all the way to a final, deployed solution. That's the prize.
So let's end on this thought. 1 month from today, what will you have to show? Is it going to be a Q&A bot that's helping out your coworkers? A chat bot that's making customers happy? A search engine that's saving developers hours of time? The blueprints are right here. The choice is yours. The only question left is, what are you going to build?
So you've heard the hype. The AI Gold Rush is officially on, and today we're giving you the practical playbook on how to stake your claim. Seriously, we're going to cover the exact skills that are in high demand and even the words to use when it's time to negotiate your salary. Let's get right into it.
First things first, why is right now the moment to jump in? Well, this number says it all. We're looking at a plus 400% year-over-year growth in job postings that just mention vector databases. That's just wild. This isn't just some small trend, it's a full-blown explosion in demand, and it's creating a huge opportunity for anyone who's ready.
And this slide right here, this really gets to the heart of that opportunity. What we're seeing is a classic, massive skills gap. You've got the demand for AI talent shooting through the roof, while the supply of people who actually have these skills is lagging way, way behind. And that gap, that's your way in. That's where you can build an absolutely incredible career.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll dig into what this AI gold rush really means. Then, we'll explore 4 different career paths you can take. After that, we get super tactical. We're talking crafting a resume that actually gets noticed, how to ace the interview, and finally, a concrete 60-day action plan to make it all a reality.
So let's start with the big picture. We're talking about a market where every top-tier company you can think of, from the big tech giants to literally thousands of startups, are all hiring like crazy. The salaries are high, and the need for people who get AI infrastructure, well, it's only getting bigger. This isn't some far-off prediction. This is what's happening on the ground right now.
So the big question is, where do you fit into all of this? And the great news is, there isn't just one single type of AI job. We're going to look at 4 really distinct, high-impact career paths to help you figure out where your skills already fit or, what you might need to learn to make a move. Let's break them down. Okay, this slide pretty much lays out the whole ecosystem. If you're an AI/ML engineer, you might be building these advanced systems like retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. That's basically just teaching an AI to look up facts before it gives you an answer. And yeah, you could be making up to $200K. Then you've got data engineers, the folks creating the data pipelines that feed everything, earning up to $180K. Full stack engineers are building the actual AI features that users click on, while solutions architects design the entire setup for clients, and they can pull in over $220K. Just take a look and see which one of these paths gets you excited.
All right, so you've got a path in mind. Now what? Now you need to get a recruiter's attention. And listen, in a field this hot, sending in a generic resume is a guaranteed way to get ignored. You have to speak the language of AI, and this section is your playbook for making sure you stand out from the pack.
So here's the absolute key. You have got to be specific. Just look at this transformation. On the left, built search feature. I mean, what does that even mean? But look at the right. You're talking about implementing semantic search with specific tech, like Pinecone. And then, and this is the killer part, you quantify the business impact. A 92% successful query rate, now that is what gets you an interview.
Having a solid portfolio project is, frankly, non-negotiable. But it doesn't have to be some massive, complicated thing. Just follow these 4 simple steps. 1, clearly state the problem you solved. 2, detail your technical approach. What tools did you use? 3, show the results with real numbers. And 4, of course, give them a link so they can actually see your work. That's it.
Now, when you get to the skills section of your resume, you need to be super explicit. Recruiters are literally hitting Control+F on their keyboards, searching for keywords just like these. So list the specific vector databases you've used, the embedding models you know, and core concepts like RAG. Don't make them dig for it, put it front and center.
Okay, you did it. Your resume got noticed and you've landed the interview. Congratulations. This is the final boss battle. And just like with the resume, preparation is absolutely everything. We're going to walk through how to handle those tough technical questions and, just as important, how to negotiate for the salary you actually deserve.
Okay, picture this. You're in the interview and they lean in and ask you this. How would you design a semantic search system for 10 million documents? It's a classic system design question, and it's really meant to test how you think about architecture. So how would you even start to answer that?
Here's how. You use a framework. Instead of just blurting out a solution, you calmly walk them through your thought process. You start by talking about embedding generation, turning all that complex data into numbers the AI can work with. Then you discuss why you chose a particular vector database, how you'd configure the index, and then how you'd plan for monitoring and scaling it all up. This structured approach, it shows you're a pro.
All right, let's talk money. This is so important. You have to do your homework long before you even get to the negotiation table. Use sites like levels.fyi. Get a real feel for the market rate. And for a senior role with actual production-level experience with vector databases, you should be expecting well over $170,000, maybe even pushing past $220,000. You have to know what you're worth. And when they pop the question about your salary expectations, this right here is your script. It's so powerful because it's based on cold, hard data, not just what you feel like you want. You state the range you've researched,
and then you directly tie your request to a specific, high-value accomplishment from your resume. See? You're not just asking for more money. You're proving why you've earned it.
Whew, okay. We have covered a ton of ground. But look, knowledge is great, but it's action that lands you the job. So this last section is a super clear, time-boxed plan to turn everything we've talked about into actual interviews, and hopefully some great offers. Let's break this down so it doesn't feel overwhelming. Don't try to do it all at once. Week 1 is all about prep work, getting that resume and portfolio polished. Weeks 2 and 3 are for focused outreach. That means applying and networking. Then, from week 4 on, your main focus shifts to interviewing. This structure makes the whole thing feel so much more manageable.
So what can you do this week to get the ball rolling? Just 3 simple things. 1, update your resume using that specific metric-driven formula we covered. 2, get a portfolio project up on GitHub with a really good README file. And 3, write a LinkedIn post talking about that project to start building your personal brand. Easy. And here's your target. This is how you'll measure your success. If you follow this plan, your goal is to have 3 to 5 interviews scheduled within the next 60 days. It's definitely ambitious, but given what's happening in the market right now, it is absolutely achievable. Let's just end on this one final thought. The market for these skills is on fire right now, and getting in early is a massive career advantage. The absolute best time to start is now. Why? Because this window of opportunity, this skills gap, it won't stay this wide open forever. The time to make your move is now.
All right, so you've just finished up your fundamentals course on vector databases. First of all, that's awesome. You've got the key concepts down, but you and I both know that the real work, and honestly the real fun, is just about to begin. This is where we go from just knowing stuff to being able to do stuff. We're going to turn that knowledge into some serious hands-on expertise.
And that's exactly what this is all about. This is the promise. We are done with just talking theory. What you're getting right now is a concrete, step-by-step, 90-day plan to take you from just understanding the ideas to becoming a real leader in this space. And believe me, this field is moving fast.
You know, this is the question that gets almost everybody. It's like, okay, I get embeddings. I understand indexing. I've even read about retrieval augmented generation, RAG. But now what? How do you actually bridge that huge gap between knowing the theory and doing something with it? Building things that work, things that can scale, and frankly, things that get you noticed. That's the puzzle we're going to solve together, starting right now.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll start by talking about that journey from just knowing to truly mastering. Then we'll get into the meat of it, the 90-day roadmap, split into 3 phases: building foundations, expanding your skills, and finally achieving mastery. And we'll wrap it up by talking about the huge career edge this is going to give you.
So this whole 90-day journey is really simple to visualize. It's 3 30-day sprints. The first 30 days are all about your foundation. We're going to ship something real. The next 30 days are for expansion, where we scale up what you know. And then the last 30 days, that's for mastery. That's where you become a leader. It's a super clear path, so let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Let's do it. Phase 1, building foundations. For the next 30 days, your goal is simple, but it is so powerful. You're going to take what you've learned in theory and get a real live application into production. This is that make or break step where the abstract ideas finally hit the real world. And we're going to tackle this week by week, so it's not overwhelming. Week 1, you're just going to hit the ground running, get your environment set up, build your first basic semantic search. By week 2, you're deploying your first actual project. A Q&A bot for some documentation is a perfect place to start because it's a real problem that immediately shows the value of this tech. Then, week 3, it's all about making it better, optimizing performance, setting up monitoring. And in week 4, you start building your public profile. You document what you did and share it with the community. So how do you know if you succeeded? Well, it's simple. By day 30, you will have a live application being used by actual people, and you'll have a blog post that proves you know what you're talking about. See, these aren't just homework assignments. They're real, tangible assets for your career. Okay, you made it through phase 1. You've got a win under your belt. Now it's time for phase 2, expanding skills. This is where we start tackling more complexity, handling real-world traffic, and building a portfolio that really shows off what you can do. So check out how this builds. Week 5, you're going to level up. You'll implement more advanced stuff like retrieval augmented generation to give your app some conversational memory. Week 6, you're on to project number 2, something a little more complex. Now, week 7 is where it gets really interesting. You are going to stress test your system to handle 100 requests per second. That's not just some random number. It's a serious benchmark that proves your app is truly production grade. Then, week 8, you pull it all together into a professional portfolio.
So just pause for a second and think about what you've done by the end of month 2. You're not just some person who built a little demo project. No, you have 2 production apps, a live portfolio, and you have proof, actual data, that your systems can take a punch. This puts you so far ahead of the pack.
And now, the final push. Phase 3, achieving mastery. This is where you make that critical shift from just being a builder to becoming a leader. It's about cementing your expertise, giving back to the community, and getting ready to make that next huge career move. The focus here really elevates. Week 9, you're going to make your first contribution to an open source project. That is a massive signal to any employer. Week 10, you'll tackle something really advanced, like multimodal search, searching across text, images, and audio all at once. And then, weeks 11 and 12 are all about you and your career, prepping for interviews and establishing yourself as a thought leader, maybe by writing another article or even giving a talk.
And here's the key. Success in this last phase is measured in real career results. Getting your code merged into a real project, lining up multiple job interviews, and becoming known as the person to ask about vector databases in your network. This is the ultimate payoff for 90 days of focused, hard work. Okay, so we've spent a lot of time on the how. Let's just talk for a minute about the why. Why should you go through all this trouble? Because, and I'm not exaggerating, the career opportunity in front of you right now is absolutely massive. And this chart, well, it tells the whole story. The demand for people who have real, practical skills in AI infrastructure is just exploding. It's off the charts. But the supply of real experts, the people who can actually build and scale this stuff, is still incredibly low. That huge gap you see, that's your opening. That is your opportunity.
Look at it this way. Right now, most developers are still just watching intro videos, trying to wrap their heads around the basics. After these 90 days, you will walk into any conversation with multiple production projects, proof you can handle scale, and open source contributions. That isn't just a little advantage. It's a total game changer.
And this is what that advantage can actually look like in the real world. Within 6 months, you could seriously be getting offers from top AI companies. In a year, you could be in a senior engineer role. And in just 2 years, you could be a technical leader designing the next generation of AI systems. I'm serious. This is a totally realistic path for anyone who puts in the work right now.
When you boil it all down, it really just comes to this one thing. Everybody has access to the same information, but the people who become masters, the ones who grab these incredible opportunities, they're the ones who commit to consistent, focused action. And this 90-day plan is your framework for taking that action.
So let's not wait. Your journey starts today. Right now, after this, go set up your dev environment, build a tiny little prototype, and go join the Pinecone and Weavy communities online. They're amazing places to learn. Your only goal for this week is to get that first, simple project deployed. It's about small, achievable steps that build unstoppable momentum.
You have everything you need. Seriously, the knowledge is already in your head, and now you have a step-by-step roadmap right in front of you. There is only one question left, and it's the most exciting one of all. What are you going to build? Your journey to mastery starts this very moment. Go make it happen.